Hello, this is the July video chat with fans. This is another one where I kind of want to hide because I don't have a new video yet, though I really have been doing a lot. There's sort of a surprise one that came up for me that I'm working on. So this wasn't planned, but I'm gonna have to make it. You'll understand. So I've had a few of those. It's not dead game news though. It should be more interesting than that. But yeah, there's a surprise video, Freeman's Mind and Game Dungeon coming out. I thought I was going to have the Game Dungeon Freeman's Mind out by now, but there was a big delay on this code fix I wanted for Freeman's Mind, and the Game Dungeon escalated. I don't know how long it's going to be. It's probably going to be a longer one, but this is one where I feel like some episodes I get like more self-conscious the longer they're going on. This is one I had so many things to say that like it's just gonna go on as long as it needs to. So I think people, if you like Game Dungeon, I think you're gonna be happy with this episode. I won't give away what it is. I'll just say this one's more my turf. I'll say that. Let's see. So for sure stuff is coming out in July, though I don't even know what's next. It just depends on what gets done first. So, and then once I finish this next game, I'm just going to start writing on the other one while someone else is helping me chop down the audio for it, and then I'll process it and try and get it out as soon as I can. But I think it's going to be a pretty good episode. Oh yeah, and the chat's it's like the day before. What this day before 4th of July. So I'll try and put this out tomorrow on YouTube. So I'm afraid I don't have a 4th of July Game Dungeon. I only have that sometimes, like if the game stands out to me, and though I'll probably do whenever I get to the next follow up, I'll for sure show some of the crew too in there, and some other stuff I missed on the crew. I thought I was gonna have it in the last follow up, but that one just. The last follow-up was all like the serious topics one, and hopefully I kind of hope I don't make any other video about serious stuff again, really. So the future stuff should be pretty light. Let's see. Okay. Yeah. Oh yeah. Other announcements. From the Phantasmagoria 2 chats that Paul Morgan Stetler has been doing, with Curtis Craig, I'm invited on to the next one. The former one had another YouTuber, Voidburger, where she did a kind of video essay on Phantasmagoria 2. I know who the next guest is, but I'm supposed to keep that a secret, so I will. I'm someone who can keep secrets, actually, believe it or not. So, so I'll have an appearance on that. I don't know how long it'll be. It could be 5 minutes or 10 minutes, that sort of thing. I don't know the date, but it'll be this month, I think, is the plan. So I'll make posts about that on Twitter, and of course I'll link to it on the website too once. Done. Let's see. What else? And so yeah, more videos coming. I don't think I'm gonna have. Well, we'll see. I think I'm gonna have to like keep doing things, doing the editing myself for a while. Even though I was gonna have like a second round with some people, but this next episode I think maybe not be such a good fit for that. When it's convenient, I'll probably throw one to other editors and maybe do like one more round too to see if someone might be able to edit some of the game dungeons. However, I might use another editor to have like another side video, which I'm not working on yet. This would be one that would be sort of similar to like that Star Trek one I did, where that's one where I felt like it didn't really need my touch so much to that kind of video. Like a lot of people could have done something similar or better than me. Whereas for the Game Dungeon with Echo, that one, it just didn't feel right with the editors I was working with, or like too many parts felt kind of off with the timing. So, but anyway, if all goes the way planned, there's a chance there could be a lot more to talk about next month. I'll just, I don't want to give away too many details. So, good things to talk about. Okay, and what? I think, yeah, I guess I'll start on the questions. I don't think I'm forgetting anything else. I have a fan going on me the whole time, but hopefully that doesn't mess up the volume, though. If it does, that's the sort of thing I can edit out to some degree. All right. Oh yeah, people. I haven't confirmed it, but people are saying that the GOG version of Phantasmagoria 2, I think they updated it so that it uses Scum VM now for the Windows copy, which is better. So great. That means nobody has to go through what I did to get the Windows copy working. That's a temperamental game, trying to get that going natively, or even in a virtual machine. All right, so yeah, okay, I'll get to the questions. Okay, the top one is, how is the food allergy going? Well, it's mixed. After the last episode, after the last video chat, I sort of doubled down and trying to research it. We put it like this: we are deep into territory where I'm not sure what I'm talking about. I'm just kind of parroting things that might be true or partially true, but it's looking incredibly likely that, well, put it like this: my theory right now is I have a food allergy to maybe a couple things, and it could be something with my gut bacteria where there's certain foods I should be eating and not eating. Beans are something I should not be eating, so I've cut that out of my diet. Unfortunately, it looks like onions might be also, but I did some I feel like there is so much conflicting information on nutrition and like what messes up the skin or not. There's a few things like almost everybody agrees on, and then there's this wide range of things where some people are saying this, some are saying others, but it also seems to vary on like what your genes are to like what you're more sensitive to or not. So there's a few foods that are relatively safe, but that's not really enough for me to have a diet based on that. So there's several I shouldn't. Then there's like this wide range of maybe foods. So I'm still trying to figure it out, but I guess I should name drop a YouTube channel I ran into during this research through. He comes across like, some of his videos comes across like a little goofy, almost like a scammer, but from watching some of the videos, I'm convinced he certainly knows some things. Rob Stewart, he looks sort of like this red-haired Viking guy with tattoos, even though he's into yoga and stuff, but he basically had skin issues worse than mine. He fixed it all through diet, and he experimented with tons of stuff, and now this is sort of his job where he gets money from clients to kind of work out diets that work with them. So he uses that as sort of his data set to figure out what screws up people's skin and what doesn't. And he was the one saying like lots of foods are maybe. Like stuff I should probably cut out or like wheat, probably maybe even all grains just about. Lots of seed oils like canola oil or sunflower oil, which olive oil is apparently okay, and coconut oil is apparently okay. I should probably not have nuts. So that's the thing. Like his diet for him right now is so restrictive. It's almost a little nuts, I think, where he's almost like on this carnivore diet thing where it's like mostly just meat and butter and it's like some dairy for him and eggs. And I tried that for a little bit and like olive oil and like I think some mushrooms said were okay. And it definitely improved my skin. But the problem was that felt a little too hardcore for me. I'm much more of an omnivore. So I still have to figure out what I'm doing. And plus there was so much cooking time, I didn't want to deal with it. But I was desperate at the time. And so when I was eating just chicken I bought and cooked, Yeah, it was just chicken breast, and I think I had like mushrooms and olive oil, and my skin really did start clearing up. And then, but the problem is like I got sick of cooking all that, or I tried to introduce other foods, and then like the grocery would run out, and so I still don't know what I'm. Yeah, someone's saying sounds like keto. It's like a more restrictive version of keto, but I could probably have other things, but I have to figure out what. So I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but I think I'm more on the right track than I was. So, uh, yeah, like last week I was eating a lot of sweet potatoes because that's more my level of cooking where, cut potato, boil it, wait, done. That's my level of cooking if I have to cook. So, and those didn't seem to mess me up too much. So I may be eating a lot of sweet potatoes if the grocery carries them. So I don't know. I think I'll eventually figure this out, but it could take a long time to just. Yeah, somebody's saying rice. See, I had rice today, and then my skin kind of flared up, but I might have eaten stuff tomorrow that's reactivating, or I had some cheese. Just it's it like the Rob Stewart guy. Yeah, not the singer Rod Stewart. Rob Stuart. Again, he looks like a red-haired kind of Viking guy with tattoos. So that's you sort of have to watch a few of his videos and kind of skip around to see what he's recommending. He has a lot of fluff content. It's like, hey guys, how are you doing? Those videos they have like 4 or 5 minutes of intros are kind of saying the same thing. So you kind of have to kind of sift through them, but I think he certainly knows some things, and I'm in no position to doubt his knowledge. It's just I'm hoping I can introduce more stuff to my diet. So they're saying us eat green vegetables. I was, but some of those vary. Like apparently peas can kind of reactivate this. Was it cruciferous vegetables like broccoli and cauliflower? I'm kind of glad about that one because I never really liked broccoli or cauliflower. I would just sort of force myself to eat them for nutritional value. But see, that's the other thing. It's like this game of figuring out what does or doesn't mess up your skin, and are you going to get enough vitamins from everything? So I hate dealing with this stuff. I will say you'd think we would know more about nutrition. I'm sure some people do, but collectively we totally don't. Like I'm remembering in school how they would teach about like the 4 food groups. I'm not sure grains even have a spot on the 4 food groups, really. They might, but certainly not to the way they were presented. I think grains are useful in the sense that they can feed your civilization. You can grow a lot of them, they store well, and you won't starve. But, if you're trying to eat necessarily what's healthier for you, I'm not sure they're really have a spot there. So I don't know. And even then with the fruits and vegetables, it depends on which ones. So yeah, I'm a bit lost, but yeah, here's the difference. I feel like before from last video chat, I was just going the wrong direction. Now I'm just lost. So that's an improvement because being lost is better than thinking you're going the right way and not. So I'll leave it on that. Again, this is totally not my expertise. I will say one of the things that I kind of knew and everybody does seem to agree on is just avoid added sugar, just pretty much in any form. Like that's one of those things pretty much everyone agrees on. That doesn't mean you can't have fruit or something, but just added. I would say other forms like honey, sucrose, even just adding fructose. It seems like that just doesn't help anything, which I kind of knew anyway. But so, okay, so I should keep moving on. You can email me about this if you think you know what you're talking about, or just It's almost like that mastermind game, you know, those of you that know what I'm talking about. This is sort of not exactly a board game, but it's where you like try to guess a color or number, and it would light up like, yeah, you try to guess like 4 colors or numbers, and if you got like one of them right, it wouldn't tell you which one, but it would tell you like, you know, one of them is right, or 2 of them, or none of them. So you'd have to kind of keep switching up your guesses to sort of deduce what the correct colors or numbers were. This is what it feels like, just a much larger scale, on a much larger scale. So, and not necessarily getting immediate feedback. So maybe you were right, but you don't find that out until 5 turns later or something. So, yeah, my email's rosswscott@gmail.com, but yeah, so yeah, that's where I am. I'm a bit lost, but I think I might be able to figure it out eventually. Okay, what's your inspiration for making those gibberish, mumbly voice lines? It's mentioned the unreadable text in Echo. Oh yeah, the unreadable text in Echo. I remember I forget what it said, but I remember at the time that's if you hit all these tuning forks, and it's like if you get almost 100% completion of the level, then you get to read what that says. But it didn't really reveal any more of the story. It was just sort of like poetry related to the palace or something. So you weren't missing much. But yeah, for inspiration for those, well, there's 2 I can think of right off. One is in the game Penumbra. When you save your game, you start looking into these little lanterns, and then you start hearing whispering like that, like, well, you may not hear on the mic here. It's like these voices or something. So I like the sound of that. And the other one, I forget when this happens. I think it might just be like ambient background noise in some levels, or it could be when you turn into demon form. I forget. But in the game Painkiller, like occasionally, I remember in some levels you hear like this kind of whispering, like painkiller, painkiller. You know, just sporadically. You know, not constantly, but just like every minute or a couple minutes, you'll hear painkiller, like this whispering. I'm sure people that play that know where that happens. But yeah, I think that's where my inspiration for that came from. Let's see. After all this time, have you figured out why Wolfenstein's headshots were so good? Well, you know, I was playing dumb in that episode, you know, with the... I'd like to see more games with pumpkin head modes. You know, hey, you know, that would be like, you know how some games are like trying to straddle like a teen or mature rated setting, so they'll have like a gore on and off option, like if it's not too gory, but so I'd love to see more pumpkin head modes, or you know, you shoot them and like the pumpkin stuff go. I loved it. So yeah. Although knowing the games industry, that could be friggin' patented by now. I mean, who knows? But yeah, no, if you're making a shooter and you absolutely introduce a pumpkin head mode or pumpkin mode. Okay. What was your biggest in-game lucky moment? You know, I have to think about this. Like, these aren't the best answers, but like I feel like I remember in some driving games there was some courses that like I managed to get the guy in front of me to like ram into something or hit another car, and I knew that was the only possible way I was ever gonna beat that track. There was just, and it was just kind of luck based if that happened. But let's see, other lucky moments. There was the one. I don't know if it was the biggest, but But like this, it was authentic in the Zany Golf episode and the kicker I have at the end. I have the hole in one there. Uh, and there's one, this probably won't mean much to people who haven't played it, but in Path of Exile, I like some skip that. Sometimes you see people like come into the chat and they'll just start giving away all their stuff because they're quitting the game. In fact, I think there was one guy who said basically said like his wife was going to divorce him if he didn't stop playing it. And I was around for one of those, and the way he was doing it was he was just kind of doing what I do with the game giveaways, just kind of asking various questions like what was his favorite soda or favorite color, and like the first person to get it in the chat, he would just give away items. Well, for one of them, he was asking like what was his favorite movie, and a lot of people were guessing, and I managed to get it. I guess Lord of the Rings. You know, there's really 3 movies, but I figured, well, yeah, this is a dark fantasy guy. That's a pretty solid movie series, so I got it. And he gave me the Headhunter belt. So if you play the game, that's one of the more sought after items, and it's well you can't really buy it with real currency, but with the in-game currency, which you also can't buy, it's quite expensive. It's well, yeah. See, I can price it. I ended up selling it pretty quickly for what 68 exalted orbs. And put it like this, that was enough for me to like start a new character and just kit them with just all the, I wouldn't say best of the best gear because best of the best gets insane in that game, but really nice gear for a complete other character. Yeah, like the odds, yeah, like I think there's a mechanism where you can chance that. And I want to say the odds of doing it are like 1 in tens of thousands or something like that. Where you burn this currency item, it's like a lottery ticket. So it's a little bit like winning the lottery, but it is. Oh, so I say Headhunter is 110 exalted orbs, right? It dropped below that. Oh yeah, that game. I heard they used to have a lot of. There were like the equivalent of like Chinese gold farmers in that game. I think they purged a lot of them, and then that changed the economy. So. But yeah, it's something I would never try to grind for on my own. But yeah, it's the equivalent of getting like a really rare item in a game. But I remember I took a screenshot of that because for my character, it didn't have a lot of use. So I just sold it for the money. But yeah, I'm trying to think of like how to explain like the currency to people who haven't played the game. It's like because there's different stages. Because if you're like a normal player, it's a lot harder to get the higher end currency. If you're a higher level character, you can get it more easily. And then if you basically play the game like you're a stock trader, which I hate doing, I never do that other than the bare minimum. Then that's probably the fastest way to get money. But yeah, so if you're just a normal player, you could probably play that game a week, with no special gear, and there's a chance you wouldn't get 1 exalted orb. So like a week's worth of gameplay. So imagine this is like a year's worth of gameplay without extra tricks, But you could probably get more. Somebody say it's not worth it. It's totally not worth it. You're right. I haven't played Path of Exile in a while. I want to let it stack up until there's like enough content to warrant it. It's a fun game if you play like through acts 1 and 10, 1 through 10. You can do that for free without too much hassle. And then you start getting into the maps, and then I'd say you should just stop there, and if you value your life, and then just maybe watch some playthroughs of some of the bosses, and you'll have a happier life, I think. And I'm not even like an extreme player, so, but yeah, that's my plan, is to not touch that game again for a few years. Nice, I like the comment. Started all nice and fun, then he did nothing but swear to the game. Yeah. Okay, so more Yeah, more questions. Yeah, I guess unfortunately I've forgotten a lot of my biggest in-game lucky moments. But oh, you're saying Silver Protection is based on the archetypal odd couple. Yeah, sort of like Laurel and Hardy or Abbott and Costello, that sort of thing. If you had to make a Silver Protection episode centered on just one of the two, which character would be more likely to produce an interesting story on his own, Mike or Dave? It's hard to say. I'm actually leaning towards Mike because I kind of see Mike a little bit like a bad luck magnet. So it's not that Mike is more interesting in himself, but I feel like I can think of more. Dave would get up to wacky stuff, but it's like his more. I feel like it has less impact if it's just on his own, whereas Mike could just discover insane things just through luck. But and the other question is, if you were to assign them a new partner, what kind of character would bounce off well with them? Yeah, this is a thought I had before. I mean, maybe I could do it eventually, but I think at first I wasn't sure how to describe it, but then it hit me a good way of putting it. I would want this kind of like gung ho, kind of like action oriented character where he doesn't like almost doesn't care what his orders are, just wants some action. And so I realized sort of like a more militant version of Leroy Jenkins kind of character, something, and like have no fear at all, like to the point where it might kind of scare Mike, and like they'd be on board with maybe spicing things up some more, but he would just want to go like even farther, like and just kind of scare them, like. So you're somebody to kind of like show up Mike and Dave in some ways. So it's like no, we're not. It's like, wait for backup. Are you kidding? No, let's do this now. We're gonna go in there and storm and the thing. And they're just like, if it's like full of armed rebels, no, let's just go in now. And then just bam, like kick in the door and just start running in. And then, or just other situations like that. Just like always ready to go. Like that kind of real like gung ho kind of character. Someone's saying like Simon Pegg's character from Hot Fuzz. Well, maybe. I mean, I get the. Yeah, it's been a while since I've seen that. I mean, he really would like. It's been a while since I've seen. He wouldn't. I wouldn't want him subordinated to the equivalent of like a meter maid or just doing tickets. Like Command would recognize this and like be happy to send them to dangerous conditions. So I feel like in Hot Fuzz he was kind of being held back, because of his attitude. And plus, he wouldn't necessarily be incompetent or anything. It's just that like the risk level would just be insane, So, like. It's a bit of a nuance because sometimes you have characters like that where they talk big but they do it or they're just going in gung ho, but it's just this small situation that doesn't really call for it. I wouldn't have him like get gung ho and everything. He would just get bored, like if they had to do something where they're just interviewing suspects or something like. No, let's just go find a guy now. Like what do you look like? This guy? Okay, fine, let's go. Just kind of. Just like, so he wouldn't be an idiot. He would just have no fear and just be like want to barrel through to the actions. So if I was gonna like introduce a third character to sign with him, I think that would be like that. Yeah, let's go find some things to beat up. Yeah, exactly. So he wouldn't I mean he could go overboard, but he wouldn't. There wouldn't be like this complete lack of awareness that this situation does not call for overwhelming force. It's just that he would get bored by that. So he would want to find something better. So maybe I'll get to something like that. I don't know. But yeah, I think that would be a good fit for Mike and Dave because it would be enough of a contrast to their style. Like Dave might be willing to do some wacky stuff and then be bored with that. This Mike could be more reserved, but like he would scare even Dave, for some situations. So, and the other thing is like this is a character might get himself killed too. So, Oh yeah. Thoughts on Windows 11 and its updated UI? Yeah, you know, I saw like the presentation, like the list of the features of it, and it gave me this thought that like I couldn't put my finger on it, but then later it hit me. It feels aimless. It feels like it's been 6 years. We're kind of resting on our laurels, but we should do something. So let's do something, except we're not sure what to do. And that's what I think that's what it feels like. Yeah, I mean, I looked at the feature list. For me personally, there's nothing in there I'm interested in. I mean, there's some fringe stuff I could see some people being interested in. But it's not. Yeah, somebody's saying they're inspired by my desktop. Well, they did center the icons, but that's still not. But then they're not even using the left space, and so it's like a bit of a waste then. No, actually, I would need some help to do this. This almost made me want to have a spoof on like what my version of Windows 11 would look like with the UI focus, because I don't know everything, but I have more ideas since I made the GUI video. I think if you saw mine, it would be overwhelmingly more popular compared against the two for everybody interested in Windows, because it would. Well, I don't. I might. Maybe I can work that into the GUI follow up eventually, to show like what I would do. It just like so much of it felt like it's not an improvement and it's not like obviously worse. It's just kind of different, and this seems like no point. I mean, that was the feeling I got from it. It just didn't. Okay, I guess the one. Okay, yeah, no, I take that back. There's like one thing that looked okay to me was having more of an option to like just hit a button and it would, yeah, sort of a tiling Windows manager. So, like if you wanted like the triple split screen or horizontal ones, they kind of incorporated that into it. But I think there might be programs for that already. But yeah, somebody's saying it's horrible. I guess what I'm thinking is, to me, it doesn't look that much more horrible than just regular Windows 10. I mean, I don't think much of that. So it's, I don't know, but there's more to it than that. I'm gonna. The reason I'm not going into more detail as to what I would do is I kind of want to like show it all at once in one of the GUI videos. But I know, I think people would overwhelmingly approve. Even if you thought my desktop was crazy and ugly, I think you would overwhelmingly approve. People would of how I would handle a UI upgrade for Windows, because I wouldn't make this just centered on me. You know, I would try to incorporate basically everybody, and kind of, because I mean it's Windows. It's like billion people using it or something like that. So. And there would be some more thought behind it. So, yeah, well, okay, so, yeah, what are the features that they had? They mentioned the auto HDR for DirectX 11 games. This could be me being more just old fogey, but I kind of don't care about HDR. I've seen it on displays in a store before, and I mean, I don't know. It just didn't create like a great impact with me. I'm kind of fine with RGB, though. I don't have a huge problem with things using HDR, I guess. Although if we're talking extreme contrast, one of the things I like about looking at a game on a monitor is like if you're looking at the sun or something, it doesn't hurt like the actual sun because, the contrast isn't that high. Not that an HDR monitor is putting out light equivalent to the sun, but that level of contrast, maybe I don't really want that, for enjoyment. But if you are into HDR, I can see where that would have some appeal. was it the direct storage thing? I'm thinking that's going to become like the next DirectX 10, where there'll be like a handful of games published by Microsoft that they use it, or well, maybe there'll be some more that use it or require it, and then it's not going to get that much adoption otherwise because it's not such a killer feature that like every developer is going to have it. Two, I think the Unreal Engine already, or maybe 5 is already going to have something like this. So they're going to have their own version that I think doesn't even require Windows support for it. I mean, Microsoft support for it. And like, now you could say that like, oh, they'll be pushing to have Xbox games have this, but I don't think PlayStation or Sony is going to be using that. So these cross-platform games, they're not going to have a lot of incentive to be using direct storage as a requirement because I don't think PlayStation will be using that. I mean, they might use similar technology, but they won't be using specifically direct storage. So, I mean, I'm sure there'll be a couple games published by Microsoft that require it, and that'll probably be it. So, well, I mean, Microsoft required DirectX 10 for, what was it, Halo 2? There might have been another game that required DirectX 10 from them. Or yeah, DirectX 12 is kind of a similar story. Like, how many games require DirectX 12? Like, I think like the Forza games that came to PC, like how many games that aren't published by Microsoft require DirectX 12? I'm not sure there are any, but there might be some though. Like I think some of the Gears of War. Someone's saying Death Stranding. Does that require DirectX 12? Let's take a look. Okay, Red Dead Redemption 2. Let's not support, but require. Okay, Death Stranding. I'm looking it up on requirements. Yeah, okay. So Death Stranding, Red Dead. Well, the other thing is these might come out kind of. The other thing is these are okay. Red Dead Redemption 2. Let's see, graphics. It's not saying on the Steam requirements whether it does. It's just saying. Actually, I think maybe not. Red Dead Redemption 2 just requires a GeForce 770 or Radeon R9 280. It doesn't say DirectX. No, it doesn't. It doesn't because it says it supports Windows 7. So if you can run Red Dead Redemption 2 on Windows 7, then it doesn't require it. Okay, so Death Stranding. When did Death Stranding come out? That was, yeah, that. Okay, 2020. So when did DirectX 12 come out? Was that 2015? So you gotta understand this is like late in the cycle when publishers feel like, okay, enough of the core player base is on Windows 10 that they're comfortable not making having requirements that Windows 7 users can't use, you know, because it says it requires Windows 10. I think even Cyberpunk didn't do that. Like you can run it on Windows 7. But that's 5 years after the fact. So if this is coming out at the tail end of 2021, you know, I'd say you probably shouldn't expect anything not published by Microsoft to require direct storage before 2026. Maybe 2027. Now, the Microsoft, I'm sure, will try to get a couple in there. So, yeah, well, they're saying there's a comprehensive list of DirectX 12 games. But see, that's there's several games that support DirectX 12, but I can't think of a single game where I feel like I'm totally missing out playing it on DirectX 11 rather than DirectX 12, you know, or Vulkan. Okay, apparently Hitman 3, they're saying requires it. That came out 2021. Yeah, the new Hitman 3. Well, I guess there was an original Hitman 3. There was just a third Hitman game. Okay, so there's a few. They're saying Marvel Avengers. Okay, so we're starting to see a few, but I think that's only happened within the last year or two. So yeah, maybe 2025 you'll see something require it. I think I can hold out quite a while. I mean, and the thing is, like, the benefits are pretty small for most gamers, I'd say. Like, because even the new consoles finally have SSDs now. Because there's a big difference, at least for load times, on having a SSD versus a hard drive. But I mean, load times aren't a big deal for me. You know, it's all kind of downhill since the the floppy disk days. Uh, so it would have to be something that like depends on it streaming so much that it requires it. And even then, Unreal already has. I think Unreal Engine's already going to have that, and Sony's probably going to have their solution. So I don't think it's going to take off. Okay, so what are other features? They have. Should look up. Yeah, different icons. I mean, I guess they look a little. I don't care. I'm already trying to replace all my icons anyway with Icon Packager. So I'm gonna have nice looking icons anyway, nicer looking ones. I'll probably steal some from like older Linux. They had a lot of good ones. Yeah, I'm not. I don't really like this flat look to everything. Well, there's was it TPM 2.0 requirement. See, that's going to slow adoption too. For those that don't know what that is, it's a trusted platform module. It's basically an additional way of authenticating with your specific hardware. And it's if you were doing stuff where you're encrypting your files, like there's like a high security environment. You don't, if somebody were getting into your computer, you don't want them to be able to access anything, even if they had your password or something. Then there's a use for it. I'm not sure if there's much of a use for it beyond that. I mean, it's certain. I could be wrong on this though. Feel free to weigh in. It seems like kind of dumb to me to make that a requirement for it. Like, I could see making it a requirement for like BitLocker 2.0 or something, but I don't know. Well, it's going to keep me off for a while. My current CPU's too old for that. So, I'm in no rush at all for Windows 11. It took me so long to get on 10. Look, I may not happen. I hope to write out Windows 10 at least like 10 years or something. So that's about how long it lasted on XP and Windows 7. So, I mean, if it had like a must-have feature, then I might reconsider. But there's that's going to leave a lot of users behind. Like say somebody just uses computers more casually. They do it to check email, maybe watch some YouTube videos. So they have an old CPU. Why the hell do they need a new one? I mean, they don't. So that's going to keep them off Windows 11. So they're saying they end Windows 10 support in 2025. Well, so what? I mean, I was using Windows 7 Pass when they ended support for it. Yeah, I don't. Okay, security issues is a big weapon for bigger companies to put a price floor on everything, so smaller companies can't have the same security standards, can't compete. Yeah, I can believe that. And the thing is, the security standards, it probably depends. I mean, in some ways it could be more secure. In other ways, another solution could be more secure, despite not having the additional hardware trusted platform module. I mean, there was hell, you had dongles, which is a similar concept, I think, way back, if that was a concern. So, Yeah, so yeah, the UI stuff just feels like changing stuff for its own sake. I mean, maybe it looks slightly better. I don't know. It basically both Windows 10 and 11 are so far outside of something I like the look of that I'm just like not even. I just don't even care what they're doing. Now I will say, okay, one positive that could, in theory, get me to move over sooner, though I'm going to count on it. I swear I read an article saying that they were going to add support for Linux UI applications, but it was kind of vague on the details. So does that mean if I wanted to, I could run like something like GNOME or KDE and have that skin all the windows? I highly doubt that, but if they actually walk the walk on that, yeah, okay. That would get my attention because then I would have way more options with the UI and start like trying to engineer something along those lines. Yeah, it's. I plan to go into much more detail on the UI and the GUI follow up because I definitely have more data to work with. I think it'll be more focused, which because it was so hard for me to just try to get a coherent message in the first one. But I've had more time to think about it. I've gotten some input that I think things would. I think people will. I think more people will be. If you were highly critical of the first one, there'll be more in the second one that you like. Yeah, again, even if you completely hated my desktop, I think you would like how I would handle like a new Windows UI redesign. Okay, I'm trying to think of any other features, but oh yeah, it was some crap like, oh, they're saying, oh, the updates will be faster. Hey, you know, it'd be better than faster updates is if you had like a quality assurance department that you fired from years ago, so that your updates are considered so stable it's an industry standard, and a mistake would be just like something that only happens like once or twice a decade or something. You know, I think people would appreciate. I think people would be a lot happier with like slower updates where there was really stringent quality control. You know, so that and then listing exactly what you're changing. Yeah, I think people would like that too. But that's so in the opposite direction of where they're taking things. Yeah, geez, they had one not long ago. Oh yeah, that's right. There was recently a Microsoft certified driver that had malware in it. Let's see. So it's like you know, it's kind of a nuanced thing to say because on one hand, I realize how big a user base they're catering to and how much work it is to check all the boxes on legacy code and make changes and check everything. That said, they're valued at over $2 trillion and there's over 1 billion devices in the world. So considering the scale of their operations and resources, I think it's a complete clown show. I mean, I realize how much they do to kind of keep it together. I realize that, but it just seems ridiculous to me. I mean, that they really should do the long-term option for everybody. You know, so if you want like the super secure, oh, not super stable, excuse me, super stable version Windows, well, that will be every few years. You know, but it wouldn't just be to some corporate license that you have that the average person isn't going to be able to get access to. Let's see. Oh, that's right. There was some requirement for. Oh yeah, that was the other big thing. Oh yeah, Microsoft digitally signs malicious rootkit driver. Yeah, so it's a malicious rootkit, not just malware. Here, yeah, there we go. Put it in the chat. So yeah, good job, Microsoft. You know, I mean, what does your certification mean then? If you can wave a rootkit on by, then, and again, this is not like it's something that only happens once in just because I've seen virus scanners make big mistakes, like I read a news article about it, but I think I read about it from like 7 years ago, and they've been like fined since then for some companies. So it was a huge deal that this got through. Whereas I installed Windows 10 in November. The next month there was a blue screen of death bug in their updates, and then I think month after that there was like an issue with VSync screwing up, and it wrecked old game compatibility. And then there was like a printer blue screen of death error the month after that. So this is like you probably count on your fingers big screw ups they're gonna have every single year. That's so that's why I say it's a clown show considering their scale. If this was like a single developer doing this, like, you know, that I'd have a lot more understanding. Well, even then, I'd say slow down, you know, or label these things as like experimental builds, you know, and then, you know, and then like every once in a while, try to have a focus on stability. But let's see. Oh yeah, the other news that we will see where this takes us. I read that they're for Windows 11 home users, they are going to be requiring having an internet connection and having a Microsoft login. So that's the news I read. I could see them changing their mind between now and then. But if that's true, that is so a shift to the Overton window of like what's acceptable. Just so you know, that's my cutoff point. If it gets to the point where it is literally impossible for me to install Windows without having internet access and it having to, well, then I'm either staying on an old version or I might eventually move to Linux if I can get enough things done with it. Because it's, I don't know, mentally I just can't come to grips with that. It is the sort of thing where, yes, the majority of the time I do have internet, but I like having a backup plan, you know, if some things go wrong, or, you know, or maybe I don't have internet for a while. Maybe there's an outage. I can keep using my computer, you know, it's, so I guess maybe for Windows 12, they'll have, require it for both home and pro. But no, I mean, it could be the sort of thing in the future where it could require that, but there'll be a crack that comes out that that circumvents the needing a Microsoft login. But it's, yeah, somebody's talking about contrast issues. I wasn't impressed by 10. Or yeah, I saw a lot of that in like modern Linux themes also, actually. Not all of them, because there's a wide variety, but if you compare like some of, well, I'm probably repeating the GUI video. If you compare some of the graphic design of like, I want to say like early to mid 2000s Linux themes compared to, it's like everything went flat and black or white. And it's like, okay, that's fine as an option. Let's not make that all the options, you know? Well, what yeah, well, okay, I'll say that for a GUI video. But, so yeah, for what I use my computer for, I saw nothing in, unless that Linux UI thing is actually not just talk. It doesn't mean that you can run like a couple Linux programs and then that's it. But it actually would allow you to just replace the shell. Then that could really get my attention. But I'm not counting. A friend of mine thinks they're going to drop the TPM 2.0 requirement once they realize how many systems don't have that. We'll see. Although I'll say this now, if they do that suggests kind of gross incompetence, because they have access to that data now. There's no way Microsoft has like no clue what their install base is for their computers. You know, as much telemetry as they have. I think I read before they have like, I think Windows 10 is like literally hundreds of different points for telemetry of data going out. where if some are blocked, others go through, that sort of thing. So there's no way they don't have that information. So if they announced 11 requiring TPM 2.0 and not realizing this would split their user base more heavily than they wanted, then so if they walk this back, that just suggests gross incompetence, I think. But let's see. Yeah, I guess those are my general thoughts. It feels aimless, and and a gradual encroach away from being able to control your own system. So yeah, that's and the UI just feels like changing things because they can. Now, I mean, yeah, I guess I like the centered stuff, but it feels like they don't know what they're doing. Like there's no. You can change something for just its own sake and accidentally have one or two things that make sense. That's what it feels like. Except it doesn't make that much sense. It just feels lost. Okay, so the next question. Well, we'll see how long I can last on 10. Okay. If you had the chance to have lunch with a famous person, dead or alive, who would it be? No, well, yeah, it's a double question. Okay, so this is the sort of thing where my answer could change in the future, but just from where I was just thinking about, just sort of off the top of my head, would it be? I think I might go with, was it Jacques Fresco? I mentioned before, like he was the creator of the Venus Project, which is sort of this utopian kind of ideal for society. Though he claims it's not utopian, I disagree. But when I was hearing about the Venus Project, it sounded like a lot of great ideas, but then it sounded like it was leaving out some parts of like, how the hell would you implement this? Like even in theory. But the rest of the ideas sounded good. So I wouldn't mind kind of, yeah, somebody saying dude lived forever. He only died a few years ago. He lived to over 100 or 101 or something. But yeah, I would kind of want to grill him on some parts to see whether he had an answer or not. And if he didn't, then like, oh well, I could at least get to hear him just talk about utopia over lunch. So that would be an interesting conversation for me. It actually reminded me of for Jurassic Park. I know Michael Crichton researched. He did a lot of research for it, and almost every part of the book is based on real science and is actually kind of hard science fiction. Like this could actually happen, with extracting the DNA from the preserved in amber, and then like trying to rebuild the sequence, the genome. But I think if I'm remembering this right, though, the part that wasn't though was how you get from having dinosaur DNA to how you get from that to injecting it to an embryo to having a dinosaur egg. And he says, I think he said he didn't have an explanation for that part, so he just skipped over it. So I kind of feel like that's what that's what the Venus Project might be doing, with like okay, well, if this part works, then the rest of this part works, but this part we're just gonna skip over. But yeah, I guess that would be to talk to somebody who had a interesting utopia idea that put a lot of thought into it. So that's kind of my issue with what was it, universal basic income. I'm not against it. I think we could do better than universal basic income. However, that compared to where we are now sounds amazing. However, the one thing I've never heard of really good rebuttal towards is how do you stop that from just all going towards rent and just inflation of like basic needs stuff, so like because there seems to be so much focus on like, oh, well, people don't want handouts. Like, shoot, I'm fine with handouts. Not me. I'm all right with that. Or this will make people too lazy. It's like, well, no, I think we might. I think you might still get enough productive work done. You might have to raise wages. Like if you don't, like let's say you have like a shortage of garbage men or something like that. Well, then you would have to change the system so that being a garbage man becomes more garbage woman, I guess. You know, though I think it's probably a male-dominated field. Becomes more and more profitable, like because nobody wants to do that job. Well, if you're doubling, tripling the salary, okay, well maybe I will be a garbage man then. You know, I think you could. It would be a transitionary thing, but I don't see as. I think it's almost a bit of a paradox where I don't see what stops landlords from just raising their rents over time because they know you're getting an extra so many amount of dollars per month. So it's like, and all the other landlords know that too. So, hey, we can raise our prices and we know they're going to be able to afford this. So what was I going to say? Yeah. So, however, you could, in theory, solve that by having a lot of regulation on how much you could raise the prices of real estate, though that seems like such a mess because, like, you want to have a lot of control over, like, basic housing, but you don't really need to have a lot of control if it's just some lavish mansion that's just this luxury thing anyway that your average person is never going to be living in. So I'm kind of okay with that sort of thing not being too regulated because if you just need a place to live that's okay, yeah, you don't need Wayne Manor, you know? So if they're charging a ridiculous amount to rent that out, well, then so what? Because that's the people who would be living there. It's not like an essential thing. But I guess the paradox is that if your government is functional enough to have like this robust interpretation of regulations to keep like rent from stealing all the money, well, that may not steal. What's the word? Siphoning off all the money from basic income, or maybe some other few other essential industries, like maybe for some foods, that sort of thing. If the government's functional enough to respond to that in a competent way, then you might not even need basic income in the first place because it could respond to whole swaths of other problems also. So, but yeah, that's the only. I don't have an ideological issue with basic income, and so much of the discussion seems around it's going to make people lazy. I'm thinking, as long as essential work gets done, so what? You know, I mean, like and if the essential work's not getting done, well, then you look at how do we incentivize that? And I think from salaries you could do. I think you could. You know, I thought of it. I realized there might be a real world example of this, where there'll be enough people to kind of fill most positions, and then you can kind of just raise salaries for the fields that we still need a lot more people in. If you look at prisons, I believe most prisoners work. I mean, even when it's optional, as opposed to just sitting around just, you know, like working out or sitting in their cell all day. I have to check the statistics on this, but I mean, if most prisoners work, then I mean, maybe there's some social stigma with that, where if you don't, that makes you more of a target or something. I'm not sure, but I mean, it seems like most people would work in some fashion. Then I would think, even with basic income, having their needs met, but. I mean, it's certainly not. Somebody's saying prisoners need money. I mean, yeah, maybe. I mean, but it's well, it can get complicated. It can get complicated. It's probably, if you don't want to work, you can put in the solitary. That might depend. Yeah, it probably varies a whole lot between prison and prison to prison. Like I'm sure there's some that's not true. It actually might be a better bet to look at like kind of like white collar or minimum security prisons, because if there's some social dynamics where if you don't work, no, you are more at risk because it makes it more of a target for some reason, then that's legitimate. But if it's just if it's just that you kind of want more perks or something, well, I mean, for some it could be drugs or cigarettes or just more snacks, or more phone calls, that sort of thing. Well, then it might make that's a more kind of equivalent. But I don't know. I think UBI could, again, I think we can do better, but I think it could work for sure as a transitionary thing, except for how you stop, particularly landlords. But it could be food manufacturers also, but particularly landlords from just siphoning off most of it to the point where you're just running a place. Okay, so the second question was, do you use the Epic Games Store? Do you have a strong preference either way? Yeah, I use it, though I haven't bought any games from it. They keep giving out a lot of free ones. For preferences, like there's only two real metrics I look at. One is price, because I tend to be cheap and only get games on sales, and Epic's not necessarily the cheapest. And the other is just when I buy the game, do I own the game? And every game you buy on GOG, the answer is yes. Whereas the answer on Steam, Epic, Origin, Uplay, it's all maybe. It depends on the game and which DRM they're using. So it's all kind of the same thing to me. Steam's been around longer, has more selection and stuff. The fact that Epic's doing the paid exclusives doesn't bother me that much because, I know some people really get upset over that, but I guess from my perspective, I prefer that to console exclusives so much. I don't have to buy new hardware for an Epic exclusive. I don't lose features like higher resolution or being able to mod stuff from it being on their store. Well, actually, maybe there are some Steam social features or achievement stuff I don't really care about. So, I can respect that people don't like it. It's just that, for me, whether the game gets destroyed or not, that just overwhelms everything to me, to care about, like, smaller fringe issues. But, yeah, I've been playing a few of the free... Though, I have to say, Epic's making me a little paranoid in the sense that, like, they give out... Some of the games they give out... Like, these are ones I bought, and like, man, if I'd known they were going to give that out, I would have waited. And like that happened. This one wasn't so bad because it was part of a pack, but I think like last week they gave out Sonic Mania, and it's like, I wanted to play that, but I got that with a pack, so that the loss on that wasn't too hard. But they also gave out, what was it, Horizon Chase Turbo, and I was thinking about buying that one, and then I see a free game, I'm thinking, oh, good. So. I've heard there are privacy issues with Epic, so they're kind of getting their tendrils in more, but I figure when it comes to privacy, I'm probably already compromised. So it's like I said, you either have to, I kind of feel like privacy online nowadays, either you're completely paranoid or else you're probably compromised with like your personal data being shared with major companies. But I kind of see a little bit like Steam and Epic and the others, sort of like feuding lords. I feel like every criticism one has over the other is legitimate. So there's some that they do some things better, others they don't. Like, it's good that Epic gives a larger cut to the developers. But I can understand why people don't like the exclusives. However, Steam does have kind of, or at least used to, had kind of a monopoly-ish presence to the point where Epic legitimately might not be able to compete with them if they didn't have that. So, and yeah, I would just assume that like every criticism of every major games distributor is probably legit. So there's no real like one Well, again, by the standard I care the most about, GOG, they don't compromise on the game DRM. You get the game, you download it, it's yours. Like you're never gonna lose it. You know, or if you do, it's your fault. Not. Whereas you can have your game, any game, but depending on a company server, they can just yank it away whenever they want. For the present, I'm still trying to work on that. But so GOG GOG passes, is like the only one that passes that test. Although I think, was it Indie Gala and what's the other one? Itch? I think none of theirs have DRM, I'm not sure. However, they tend to lean more towards kind of fringe indie games. So the more mainstream a game is, the less those are likely to have it. Whereas GOG still has a lot of mainstream games too. Though Steam's probably the winner for that, for just most games. What? But yeah, I mean, yeah. I think Epic doesn't have the ability to let you buy multiple games at once or something. I'm not sure if you can gift games on Epic yet or not. I haven't really followed it, but yeah, if it doesn't come at too high a cost, sure, I'll take free games. I'm fine. Oh yeah, I also feel like both Epic and Steam both do good things on the side. Like Steam has really carried the torch for kind of standardizing VR. I mean, with Steam VR, I mean, it was looking ugly when it was just Oculus handling things. Whereas Steam VR is almost like the equivalent of like DirectX for back in the 90s, where it's kind of unified it. So that's very helpful. They also like they've done a lot for Linux gaming compatibility. Even though I wish they were a little more focused, like the Steam boxes felt like they weren't too focused on that. And let's see. Well, they established a lot of platform stuff, past. But on the other hand, Epic, they're putting a lot of money into the Unreal Engine, which is having all kinds of potential. That's really going to help the movie for all the stuff they're adding, and I'm sure a lot of developers in general. So I both like what they're doing on the side with some of the money. So, but yeah, for what I care about, it's kind of GOG, and then there's everybody else. So. Which game box art do you like most? Which do you find the most misleading or unrelated to the actual game? This is one of those where I'd have to like review a whole bunch again. I'm just sort of remembering more recent ones. Like the most recent ones I can remember that I like the most are what is it? No Time to Explain. That one just is a great cover. I really like the one to Mothergunship. It has like this big, giant, kind of mechanical skull thing. With the lighting is gorgeous on it, and then you see like this mech guy, much smaller facing him. Oh, one of my all-time favorites. Serious Sam: The Second Encounter HD. So not the original one, but it has them like on the. It's like in Mayan ruins. Or no, not even ruins, the temples, because he's traveled back in time. It's like dawn, and then you just see him there with like his back to the viewer, holding these weapons, standing on top of one of the ziggurats or something, and you just see like just horde of enemies coming at him. I love it. Here, maybe I can find a. Well, I'll put that in the screen. That is one of my all-time favorites. It's just fun to look at. It just captures the spirit of the game so well. Serious Sam: Second Encounter HD. Let's see. Cover. Maybe I could put that in the chat. Yeah, this is almost like poster worthy here. Oh, where? Oh yeah, here we go. Yeah, oh great. Nice high resolution link. wait, no. Oh, wait, come on. Google's doing that thing where they say, hey, this exists at a higher resolution if you click on this link. Then you click on the link and it's not there. Yeah, all right. Yeah, here we go. Fantastic. This says a lot. Yeah. Or that was one of the taglines of Mad Max Fury Road, like, what a beautiful day. It gives me that feeling. What a lovely day. What a lovely day. Let's see, some others. There's a whole lot of cool 80s and 90s, maybe even some 70s. More 80s and 90s, though, box art. I think the 80s especially might have been like the golden age for box art. That there was just some fantastic stuff. Let's see. That I just, my memory is too blurry on it. I have to go through a bunch to like look at some of my favorites. I think I mentioned earlier Psygnosis had a whole bunch of great ones, but they're by no means the only ones. Well, I wouldn't mind having an art gallery of just game art, like game box art, the stuff that's just, it just feels so much like art in itself that you almost want to put it up on a frame. There's let's see. I had one an older one that was in my head that I really liked, but geez, I might have lost it. There was Mystery of the Druids is just kind of goofy. Yeah, there's a lot of goofy ones too. For Misrepresentative, I'm sure people can remember more. I think there's like a famous one for Super Nintendo. Was it Phalanx or something? If I can remember Phalanx box cover, where it's like a side-scrolling kind of shoot 'em up of the spaceship. So this one's kind of notorious. The cover is some guy on his porch with a banjo. I'm not sure that has anything to do with the. Well, I guess to their credit, they do have the spaceship there. I mean, it's a good cover. I like it, but yeah, maybe it's the most representative. There's a lot of others. Okay, someone's saying the cover project is great for. Yeah, look here. Let's copy that. Let's see what's on there. Yeah, this is the sort of thing I might kind of look through some more sometime, because you really did have art on some of those. Oh yeah, I remember. Just because this is related, I remember my wife sent me a link where it was something like somebody was making a joke where this guy was tripping out on LSD, so he needed a funny image and was asking his friend to send it to him, and his friend just sent him like this kind of horror image. It was kind of had like a goat skull or something, looked like this Antichrist stuff. And I was thinking, well, no, that's not what I would send. If somebody's sending me something they're on LSD and they need me to send them an image, I was thinking, what would I want to send them? And what I landed on was either Wario Land box cover or Super Mario Land 2. Because I figure, well, okay, if you're on LSD, look at, you're gonna want some colorful stuff and like lots of imagery to look at. So and I remember those having like a lot of wacky stuff going on in that cover. I can imagine somebody on LSD really tripping out if they saw something like this. Yeah, here, I'm trying to get a link here for yeah, here we go. Well, this one wasn't scanned so well, but yeah, they have too much saturation in that copy. And let's see. Let's check the Wario Land box cover. Yeah, lots of things going on there to think about if somebody was on acid. So yeah, here we go, Wario Land. Oh, okay. Tyler McVicker's in the chat. Yeah, Valve News Network. I haven't heard from him in a while. But yeah. So if somebody was tripping on LSD and you showed them this, I bet they would have an interesting trip. So let's see. Oh yeah, I guess. Well, I don't want to mess with OBS and screw up everything to try to show it on the video chat. But in retrospect, that's probably what I should have done. Okay, so yeah, box cover is one of those things I need to catch up on, and maybe eventually I'll pick out my favorites and maybe use some AI upscaling to have like wallpaper quality versions of them or poster levels of them. The thing with posters is you only have so much space, so you really gotta pick your absolute favorites that you're not gonna get tired of over the years, I think. Whereas wallpaper, that you can do a lot with. So. Okay, more questions. I saw recently some experimental shoes for VR where you walk in place to move around in the game. Do you think that will help you with the motion sickness if you had those? Possibly, though I think I might just want to jump straight to the inverted dome 360 treadmill. If you're confused, this doesn't really have moving parts. This is just like a dome, and you put on like special slippers or something, and it kind of tracks where you are on it, and so you just kind of run in place. So it's not like what you see in Ready Player One or something like that. I mean, it could help. But I hope it'll help. So, but I would need some space for that, and it would cost something for sure. The experimental shoes might be less pricey, but it's hard to say. Plus, I think it might feel better moving around if you're not sitting down the whole time. I figure I sit down enough just on the computer. But plus, there's I guess while it's much more secondary to the 3D visuals, there's the immersion aspect too, where it kind of feels more like you're walking around in the place if you can actually walk. What genre or settings are underutilized in gaming? So that's from Spooky Carnivals and Actraiser Legs. Yeah, this is one I just wasn't sure. I mean, I might be retreading myself a little bit, but the ones that I guess there could be others I'm not even thinking of, but I'm trying to think of like games I've played that I love the gameplay to, and I really haven't seen much that's kind of similar to it. And ones I mentioned are Dungeon Siege, the party-based action RPG. Haven't seen a lot of that. Red Faction Guerrilla. I mean, just going in and trashing the base like that. I mean, it's so fun. Though they might be part of the reason they might be the part of the problem with that. I think they might have patented that mechanic, which they shouldn't be allowed to get patents for that. I can see them patenting their particular software to make the building break down. So, it's their special code that allowed to do that you'd have to license from them, or they want to hold on to it. That makes sense. But just the concept of going in and breaking down a building in a game in that fashion, I mean, I could be remembering this wrong though. Okay, somebody's saying that's copyright, not patent. Well, maybe, no, some game features are patented. Like, I think there was like the famous one, it was like Activision patented, I think it was Activision patented like having like mini games during load screens. I mean, this is like stupid. Like, I can understand protecting your particular code. That makes sense. Or your specific intellectual property. So, a competitor couldn't make a Red Faction sequel without permission from the rights holders. That makes sense. But just what? If you're talking mechanics, I don't think unless it was an incredibly specific thing that just it's not reasonable somebody would have come across this on their own. And even then, I'm not even sure that would exist. It just does. It makes no sense to me. Well, I mean, it makes sense. They're doing it to make money, but I don't. And it doesn't make sense to me why the patent office upholds this. That's again. I think these might be actual patent. Well, here let's check. Activision patent load screen. I think it was a patent. It wasn't just copyright. So whoever's saying that's copyright, not patent. So they own, yes, from EFF.org. They, let's see, Activision. Oh no, maybe it wasn't Activision. Okay, load screen. Wait, the loading. Okay, it was who the hell patented this then? Okay, so that was patented. Maybe it wasn't Activision. Maybe I'm remembering this wrong. Let's see. Yeah, well, you didn't come here to watch me research stuff in real time, but I don't know. Well, it was patented though. Okay, a bunch of people are saying Namco. Okay, so I got it wrong though. What? No, okay, sorry. And Warner Brothers patented like the Nemesis system and Shadow over Mordor or War of Mordor. I haven't played those yet, so I don't know exactly what. I think the concept is like if you kill an enemy, they like come back or they're and that they have like a specific grudge towards you. They're gonna seek you out. I'm not sure. I haven't played those games yet, but it sounded too broad, you know. That well, here was that let's see. Was the Nemesis system just copyrighted or patented? Warner Brothers Interactive Entertainment has been issued a patent for the Nemesis AI system found in Middle Earth. So yeah, the concept of an enemy coming back at you, that shouldn't be, that should be open. Their particular code for making that happen, fine, that makes sense. They put the work in on coming up with that. So yeah, you can't use their code, or you can't use the Lord of the Rings IP or whoever the rights holder is. Well, Tolkien's dead. I kind of feel like you should, but that part is a copyright thing. But so yeah, it holds gaming back. The more of this there is, this is probably, after destroying games, I consider this maybe the second biggest threat to games. Because what if somebody gets a patent for alternate fire on a weapon? Or, I mean, I guess some cats are out of the bag, but I could see them trying to stuff more back into it. I mean, like I'm thinking for like the real-time strategy genre, that's one where when there were developments made for that, like everybody piled on it and took those. Like if you wanted to like hotkey groups, like, if you select some units and hit Control 1, Control 2, like everybody started copying that. Or was it like the patrol mechanics, everybody, they all use that. Or like waypoints for like when you train a unit. See, if they could kind of go back in time and start patenting all this stuff, it just holds the whole industry back when you do that. I mean, was I was saying Monsanto was trying to patent the potato. I could see that this is where food, it gets even uglier, because you don't need games to survive. You do need food to survive. Now, I mean, you can say there's an argument to patent their particularly genetically modified version of a particular potato strain, but when their reach is so encompassing that this is like the majority of potatoes being grown in a country, or like seeds or something from one farm that is using the copyrighted potato blow over into another field and they claim copyright over that. I mean, it's like you're trying to make nature fit into a copyrighted system. It doesn't work like that. And then combining that with people need food to survive, then I feel like we're kind of heading more down towards the dystopia path of that sort of thing. But it's I haven't heard. I only watched some of it. Is there? I'm sure the chat could tell me this. Is there a scene in the Game of Thrones TV show where they say like power is power, or something like that, or maybe that was like a reinterpretation I heard somebody else say. I feel like that kind of explains a lot of the decisions we have in society, where it doesn't make sense. It can actually work against the majority of people's interests, but power is power. So if you have the power to make it happen, and it's in your particular interest, that's what happens, So I feel like a lot of decisions have to be. You go crazy if you don't look at things through that lens, because too many things seem insane or don't make sense. Whereas if you realize, oh, okay, it's just powerful people exercising their power, and this is just the excuse. Okay, that now we see what's happening. So, yeah, I sort of gave up on Game of Thrones. It was, well, the TV show. It was really well done, but it was too nihilistic for me. Yes. Season 1 spoiler. They kill Sean Bean. So I figured after that, I was like, well, what's the point? He was the closest thing they had to a hero. So they cut his head off. Okay. I just wasn't feeling it much after that. Okay, so more questions. Oh yeah, for for underutilized features in games. So those are ones that come to mind for gameplay. Oh yeah, well, I mentioned before, I would love to see kind of like a single player style, like PlanetSide type game, because I love the kind of sort of high-tech futuristic war campaign, like on another planet or something. But the thing is, PlanetSide, it's a multiplayer game, and you play against other players, so it's not really designed, even though they added in the mechanic that just sort of declares victories, it's not really designed to have like a full victory scenario. Whereas if you're playing against a computer, you could have a full campaign and like this big asynchronous battle. Not asymmetrical battle where you're just going up against like overwhelming forces and you have to out-strategize them. I think I know how I'd want it to work, where you'd want to, part of the game would be kind of like a high level, maybe even 4X type style game where you just kind of arrange your battles, maybe do a little bit of resource management or figure out where you want to deploy your troops. And then you set your next battle site. That could be like a big map and there's like a few bases that are, or you could even drop them outside the base and kind of move forward. And then you're dropped in like a first person perspective and you kind of work with what you have. Like you could maybe, this would be tricky, but you could either have something where like you're like a commander, so you can give like broad orders, like saying maybe attack like the left side or move vehicles here or something like that. Or if you were like really good at first-person shooters, the AI would just kind of wouldn't be great on your side, but it would be like functional enough to sort of keep the battle from pushing too far back, too fast. Yeah, I guess if you don't do anything, you eventually lose the battle, but it could take a long time, and what it is, you could go through and kind of push through. So you could either take a more kind of hands-on, like general or commander approach where you're saying, move these troops up this side, artillery strike this area, and kind of move in slowly, let your troops do more of the work. Or you could kind of go Rambo, and if you're good enough at first-person shooters, try to take down swaths of enemies and key points. Then you'd like drop some defense gate or something, and then the troops rush in to support you. So I think it would be, I think it could be so awesome potentially. And I haven't really seen a game that's quite like that. Oh no, okay. I've seen a game that kind of mirrors this concept a little bit, but it's not quite it's not really PlanetSide style. I think it was, what was it called? Like Divinity Dragon Commander or something, where part of the game is that kind of 4-act strategy. And then you go in and then you're flying your dragon around hitting bases. But I think I would want like the actual ground level stuff to be a lot more developed. So, okay, somebody's saying Call to Arms is kind of like that. Maybe I'll check that out then. No, I think one of the Red Faction games was like that. That there was like a strategy, maybe not as no, I don't think it was Dragon Guard. I think it was called Divinity Dragon Commander. So you, but see, like the strategy element could determine like how big the defenses are at different bases and where they are, and like how many troops are you bringing in, or like support vehicles or artillery. So I kind of want like a sci-fi World War II game, World War II style game where you're kind of jumping in and out of like top level strategy versus on the ground trying to make the battle play out. Okay, Rainfall. I don't think I've heard of that one. I should write that down. So, I mean, this would take a lot of work probably. I don't think I think this would be hard to pull off with just like a small indie game studio. You probably need at least a mid-level studio for this, but yeah. And then you could have an actual campaign out of it, so that by the end of it you've gone through like this long kind of war campaign. So I mean, PlanetSide 2 does it on the scale that I'm looking for. The scale of PlanetSide 2 is awesome. So that's what I want to see. But I think with modern systems now, you could really have that as like a single player thing, because the AI wouldn't need to be that complex. I mean, the soldiers could just have like basic routines and stuff. I mean, you have a lot of them, but how many cores are CPUs getting these days? It could really put them to use. So. Okay, so, yeah, Sacrifice is one of those I never got around to. But yeah, so that would be, I would be really interested in a game like that. Yeah, it wouldn't have to be. I mean, I'm biased towards the sci-fi high-tech setting, but this could be, this could be kind of a fantasy thing too. Because imagine something like Total War Warhammer, except when you get to the, well, I mean, when you get to the battles, instead of it being like the classic, line up troops on both sides in a big field and have them clash with each other. Let's say you're trying to do an assault on like a fortress and there's like a lot more terrain to contend with. So you could get on the ground level more, or it's surrounded by like snarling forest, or maybe snarling's not the right word, twisting forest, or there's like cliff faces and stuff, so that it becomes a lot more tactical than just two armies lining up on. I mean, not saying there's not a lot of strategy there, but I don't think that lends itself as well to like a ground level view. Yeah, somebody's saying Mountain Blade could have that potential. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, because before, I'm not sure when that happened. A lot of like your classic wars, especially in Europe, or like going back to the Romans, a lot of it would be like kind of two sides lining up with their armies and going at it. but I think you'd want to encourage more kind of World War II style attacks, where just everything's game. You can have covert units sneaking in, uh, was it siege elements where you're kind of blowing out walls, that sort of thing. But let's see, what are the oh yeah, for settings, I kind of okay. This part, I'm going to give a very unhelpful answer here, where I kind of feel like we're not quite hitting our potential with game settings. I kind of want to see the game artists take more of the driver's seat with settings. I'll link to this video too. I gave a link to it on Twitter. There was this sort of contest recently that a YouTuber did where a bunch of graphics artists or 3D graphics artists, they were given a prompt of this animation of this guy sort of trudging forward, and maybe had like a sphere in the background or something, and they all gave their own interpretation of what that world would look like for how they all implemented that into their own world, and the results are just fantastic. Like, I would want to see like that had like dozens of settings I would want to see a game set in, where like the art itself is almost telling like this, a lot of them were almost telling its own story. I don't even want to try to describe it here. Maybe I'll put a link in the description afterwards. It's on my Twitter if you go up like a week or two. Yeah, in fact, maybe somebody in the chat can link to it. Where I kind of feel like we're not getting as imaginative as we could be, because I don't know. I'm a little biased because I've actually been playing a couple games from like late '90s, early 2000s, and I was seeing like, wow, this is fantastic with the imagination, what they're doing. It's like, I'm not seeing too many games like this nowadays. It's like, I think they're kind of following more established formulas. But again, I told you this wasn't going to be a helpful answer, but I'll link to that video. It's totally worth a watch, even if you just skim through it. It'll give you ideas. And yeah, somebody's asking, I played Anachronox. No, I haven't. That one's turn-based combat, but I need to watch a playthrough of that one. I like the setting of it. It looked neat. So, let's see. Okay. What do you make of the rising tide of major government attention being paid to UFOs and the videos that were declassified? I haven't really paid attention to those. I guess I feel like if there is just really conclusive proof of this, like there's just, maybe you can send me a link if you want to, which one really looks like these are aliens and not like couldn't be explained by something weird or experimental. I think what I would take from that is that maybe someone in the Defense Department decided these aren't that dangerous, and or these aren't revealing like, military secrets, and it's safe to be declassified. That would just be my guess. I think aren't parts of the Kennedy assassination investigation still sealed? Like, here, let me check. JFK. So that makes me think that, like, okay, this is from, or that recently like have they declassified everything from like the JFK? Because that makes me think, I think more got released like a couple of years ago, but it's still not everything. I'm not sure on that though, but it's like, I mean, what's going on that this had to be sealed like this long, I mean, it'll be unsealed once everyone even tangentially, involved is dead or something, Yeah, I mean, if it's just something weird that the Navy or Air Force spotted on camera, and then it's later confirmed that this is not ours and this video does not reveal any classified military information, then yeah, I mean, why not release it then? If it's safe, it could have just taken them that long to go through it, and or it could be like whatever the administration is administration's mentality is, because some could just be no, just keep it all secret. Let's not even take a chance. Whereas others are thinking like, okay, well, let's look it over carefully, and if it's good, fine, release it. It makes it look like we're hiding less, So I don't know. I don't really have a strong, unless we get like dead to rights proof that like, yeah, this really looked like aliens. I'm not paying a whole lot of attention to it. But any thoughts on programming languages? If you have experience or thoughts on any to share, what's good, what's bad. Also, what type of narration style and literature do you like best? First person, second person, or third person? I mean, I guess third person when reading books. I don't know. It feels a little more awkward with first person, but well, not necessarily. But third person feels like the standard for me. And the person below this got a half right. Russ said he's not a programmer. So, that's true, but basically he loves Java. I never said anything like that. I'm not sure. Maybe this is the guy trying to like insert his own agenda into the comments there. Yeah. Maybe I can make him think Ross likes Java, and then more people like Java. I remember I used a Java program when I was doing tech phone support. It was incredibly slow. This was like early 2000s. Though it's probably not the best for speed, though, from what I've heard for Java. Let's see. But no, I'm just not qualified at all to comment on it. So let's see. I guess the only thing I could say is it would not surprise me if more this becomes a new kind of frontier in the future, because at some point, look, transistors are only going to get so small with CPUs, and at some point, your only options left, not that we're there yet. I think like we might be able to have or basically with optimization. So we'll have more optimization with processors, I think, eventually. And I think with I think there might be options opening up with speed with graphene production, though I forget exactly how that works. But more efficient code can make dramatic differences. Like it varies, but I've seen examples where I think most people don't even realize how much faster computers potentially can be. If you've seen programs that are written on assembly run, like with just like the barest, just be small amounts of code compared to like more mainstream programming languages, it just runs circles around it sometimes in speed. Not for everything, but for some things, it's just staggering. So I could see, I'm not saying assembly is going to make a comeback, but I can see where in the future you could, that becomes kind of a bit of a new gold rush if there's projects that really call for more speed, but we're hitting our limits with hardware. I mean, also I've heard assembly is a very difficult language to use too, because for most people it probably makes sense not to have the barest metal programming language, because you want something that's easier to understand. Like if you're making a program that doesn't require ultimate speed, you might as well use the thing that's easier to understand, because then it gets made, and requires less of your time, even if it's less efficient. So I mean, it's not like there's a one size fits all for everything. So I was saying it's like eating soup with chopsticks. Yeah, maybe. Using assembly for modern programming is like trying to build a house using grains of sand. Could be. Yeah, I can imagine a whole lot of programming relies on previous existing libraries also. So, but the point, the larger point I'm getting at is there's potential there. Like I've seen for dramatic speed increases, though it could come at an incredible amount of programming costs. So. Okay, so I'm not going to offer anything more insightful than that. Describe your ideal card combat game. Yeah, this is one that was kind of tricky for me too, because I kind of realized, well, okay, I don't know if this would be the ideal one, but I kind of realized most games where it's like a card combat game, I kind of don't really like the gun aspect of it because it sort of cheapens the car aspect in a way. Like I'd much rather like ram into the person or drive them off the road or like, you know, over a cliff or something, or get them to smash into a concrete divider, that sort of thing. It's more visceral. It kind of feels more fun. Whereas if it's just a shooting thing, it's like, well, okay, you shoot them for so long, then it explodes. That said, though, there are a few shooting things I like, and I don't know if this really counts as like card combat. I think I mentioned before one of my well, hey, this might be another category for underdeveloped ideas. One of my absolute favorite multiplayer experiences was this custom map. I think it was for I think I mentioned this before, for Counter-Strike Beta, Jeepathon 2K, where you basically, it was like the barest map. The terrorists and counter-terrorists started at opposite ends. You hopped in the Jeep. One person was the driver. Everybody else got on, and you just went and had drive-bys. And man, it was so much fun. Like because sometimes you take out the driver, then it kind of rolls to a stop, and then that team is at a disadvantage. Everybody gets out. You have to take cover. Somebody's saying I should play Sub Rosa. Okay, I can write that down. And I forgot what. Oh yeah, the 3D video. Look on this. So it was. Yeah, it was. So yeah, I'm not sure. I've seen like a kind of competitive thing where you're just having drive-bys. You know. So it was a lot of fun, especially trying to get everybody to pile into the vehicle. Well, you could have multiple vehicles if you wanted to do it, make a game out of it. I mean, that's a pretty basic concept. That is something like a one-man or a small studio could put together. You know, just make a multiplayer game out of it. And the thing is, the car goes down, then you're on foot, then you're at a disadvantage because then they could just run you over. Or maybe you have like upgrades to the car to put on more armor plating or something, or I don't know. And then you could maybe have like an advanced tactic of your driver trying to drive like this, you know, slunk down so they don't get shot in the head, but like just barely trying to see the road. So that's one idea. And another one, you know, it's been done, but we could see more of it. When I think about it, one of my most fun experiences with like combat in car games, I mean, again, if this counts, is just escaping the police in the Grand Theft Auto games. I mean, some more than others, but it has like that frantic panic feel that just like chaos is just exploding around you, and you're just making these frantic getaways, and you're just doing everything you can to just get out of the situation. It just, man, that's like the highlight of the whole series for me, is just basically like you've robbed the bank or something, the cops are on you and you're trying to get away. And like sometimes they take out the vehicle and you have to immediately jack another one. I mean, that's so good. That could be its own game, you know? I mean, it's because I mean, Grand Theft Auto games are so enormous now; they just encompass everything. But that's just such a fun aspect of it, just running from the cops and then just like trying to evade them. They're radioing in, and it's like you can't outgun them. The best you can do is maybe get some of them to buy some time or something like that. But yeah, so well, those are some ideas for car combat. But yeah, I guess my least favorite is when you just have some like mounted gun and you're blowing up other cars. I don't know. Maybe it just got oversaturated from that feeling of it. Yeah, someone's saying Need for Speed Most Wanted. Yeah, if you wanted like a less violent one that could get like a teen rating or something. Yeah, Need for Speed. Well, actually, I remember the Hot Pursuit games being a lot of fun where they're not shooting at you, but they would try to run you off the road, set up spike strips. Yeah, running from the police is like a classic material for fun games, if you do it right. I think it's more fun when it's not overly goofy, because I think it was in Hot Pursuit 2, they did these things where like helicopters would like drop flaming barrels onto the road to try and stop you. Thinking, no, they wouldn't do that. Like but the helicopter is a problem because then you can't shake them. It's like you have to find a underground area or more air cover. But yeah, so but that's a little less combat. That's more just escape kind of thing. Okay. Any updates or progress on the secret weapon? Well, okay. Sorry to disappoint everyone, but the secret weapon was the Dream Software video. It's such well, that doesn't mean it's the only weapon. I'm still gonna try and push forward with trying to get. I'm falling behind on it. I'm embarrassed about that, but I really am gonna push forward as much as I possibly can, with using the law to the consumer's advantage in France, because I think that's that's the highest odds for success, and a victory in France would be enormous on this issue. So that's not our only hope, but I think that's the best hope we have outside of the law. Like the law is the only way to really solve this, and even then, that's not a solution to the problem, but it gets us a lot more than we would have had. So again, sorry if I built it up too much, but I really am going to do everything I can on like trying to get the law enforced on this. I mean, that's the thing. It's such a hell of a problem because they really have preservationists in kind of a headlock here, where if you want to preserve the game, you bought the game, you try to do it, you can't do it. When they pull the plug, you can't do it unless you're just a complete programming genius and you're willing to devote maybe years of your life towards trying to build a server emulator. So it's, however, if we could rip all the maps from it, or the source material, that would give us be a hell of a lot easier than just make some game mod that uses the material and recreate something resembling the game that way. However, we would need that tool for kind of ripping the material. I mean, there's no good answer really, aside from it shouldn't be legal to just revoke what they've sold to the player. Or to the consumer. That's the only good answer as far as I'm concerned with it. Everything else is just trying to like work around how messed up the situation is. And it's becoming a pet peeve of mine when this topic comes up and people say, well, that's why I pirate, or that's That's why piracy will save us. It's just like, no, it won't. Piracy does not fix this problem. I can name a couple dozen games that never got pirated, and they're dead. So it's they're not seeing the bigger picture. That's why I'm real aware of Windows, like mentioned earlier, Windows 11 trying, kind of encroaching on this territory where they're just taking baby steps towards doing this with the OS. I mean, if that report was accurate, if Windows 11 Home cannot be installed without an internet connection and a Microsoft account, well, then that's a step forward towards this kind of business model, which we've seen just hundreds of times by now, that on average, they don't give a damn about whether it works in the future. So it's just kind of like throwing it in an incinerator. It's in the future though. So yeah, sorry I don't have a better answer for that, but I mean, seriously, it's not for lack of brainstorming. It's just, it's a real headlock for trying to not have the games destroyed. But I don't think it's hopeless yet. I think they're really considering that ruling. That, yeah, if you're interested in this and you haven't seen, look up my video, Dead Game News, Valve versus France. That one, I think that's our best opening for trying to get this solved. So, and if that doesn't work, then fingers crossed, AI kicks open some more doors for us. So, do you have an update in the old version of Trackmania Valley? Are you saving that for a follow-up episode? Yeah, I was hoping to have that in the last follow-up, but it just went on too long. So that'll for sure be in the next number 4 when that happens. And I'll also elaborate, in case there's any confusion, I wasn't trying to diss speedrunners or people aiming for. I may have cut my lines a little bit too short. I'm going to explain my gaming philosophy in that episode. I think, because I've seen some people a few people just completely not understand where I'm coming from in some games. So I think it'll spell it all out. And even if it's not necessarily your outlook on games, I think it'll make almost all my views kind of make more sense when it comes to games. So. This is, when I say gaming philosophy, I'm talking about just like enjoying the games, not, this is separate from the preservation thing. In a perfect world, I wouldn't even be thinking about the preservation issue because it would just be the default. I mean, it's like, if you buy a board game, you don't have to worry about that being destroyed unless it's something that happened that you did or is around where you are, If you just keep it in an attic, it's not going to get destroyed, most likely, unless it was defective and had cheap materials But even then, it's like the passage of time, not an artificially imposed thing. So. What is your favorite junk food? Something I probably shouldn't eat now since I should avoid most oils. I don't know, maybe corn dogs. Because there's like a spectrum of like, well, is this, because I like a whole lot of, like a blurry line would be something like Mexican pizza. That like, is that junk food or not? I mean, maybe it could be kind of healthy, But corn dogs, I think, are pretty safely in the junk food category. I mean, I like several. I mean, I like fried chicken. I mean, is that one's kind of like blurry? Is that junk food? Well, maybe not. Actually, it probably depends on what you fry it with, and what's in the batter. Yeah, I think fried chicken can be both, because it depends on what's in the batter and what kind of oil. If it might actually be relatively healthy, depending what was in it. So. But most probably isn't. Let's see. Oh, are there any franchises in which you would consider yourself a lore junkie? Not really. I mean, I know some things about some series, less about others. Okay, I may start picking and choosing questions, but let's see. What game messed with your mind the most? You know, I think I might. Well, at a game dungeon, I think it possibly could be the Armed and Delirious. That gives you a weird feeling after playing a whole lot of it. But somebody's saying Spider-Bot. No, Spider-Bot didn't mess with my mind too much. I found Spider-Bot kind of fascinating. Sort of like, this is like an alternate reality Metroid type game, you know? Let's see. I'm trying to think of what else. For ones that haven't been on a game dungeon, I mean, it doesn't mess with it too badly, but it's like I didn't really like how I felt after it. What? I played, I Have No Mouth, I Must Scream. That's a really dark, kind of depressing game. I played a little bit of Drowned God, like a long time ago. I remember it was kind of like a typical adventure game, but I just remember everything about it just had this real kind of depressing feel to it. So I didn't really get into that. I'm not really into depressing stuff. I've had enough of that already, so. Okay, so I'm asking, some of your projects you put on hold or even completely abandoned. I haven't completely abandoned too much, so don't worry about that. Some are on hold are some civil protection episodes. What are some other? One on hold, I'm hoping to get it done this year. It's a different one. It's related to like Linux and old games and some other stuff. Some of that stuff just moves in such slow motion. Some of the follow-ups, like the games as a service one, the GUI video, I think I sort of abandoned a couple ones that are like a little more serious, I guess, when I think about it. I just figured it just wasn't really a direction I wanted to take the channel. Again, if you're wondering like the overall direction I want to take the channel, the videos, fun adventure is like, you know, and comedy stuff. That's kind of the general direction I'm aiming for, even if I've had a few detours, you know. Okay, I'm skipping a few more. What do you feel is your greatest flaw? I mean, I don't know. The two that come to mind are occasionally I can still have like mini depression episodes, but it wasn't like what I used to have. And that can, because I kind of feel like if I'm motivated on something, I can overcome almost anything. But if you know, it kind of feels like, you know, if you kick the stool out from under somebody with your drive or motivation, then I'm just dead in the water, and that can be a big problem sometimes. Though I will say that is definitely food related. Some foods, well, I mean, especially being off sugar now, the sugar can definitely aggravate that to some degree. I think other foods too, but problem is I don't know what food I should be eating for enlightenment. I mean, I'm sure it depends on your brain chemistry too. What? I guess if you're so, I know there's some people who are like really masters of like meditation and controlling their own minds and stuff, but I'm not. I don't know if I have like the mental discipline for that. I don't really like. I tried meditation like years and years ago. I really didn't really like it. Let's see. For other greatest flaws, I can be. It constantly feels like I'm in some sort of time bubble where if I try to do something, where like my time estimations for everything take longer. So to the point where even if I feel like in the past they didn't, I mean, I don't know. So I can be slow on doing some things. Well, I mean, I can be fast, but that's in kind of like a more panic state, and then there's like more, uh, there's like a higher probability of mistakes and problems, that sort of thing. So I don't know. Will Gordon ever look in a mirror in Freeman's mind? Does Half-Life 2 even have a mirror that like shows a reflection? You know, because I remember, I think it does. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it doesn't because I think by default, there is no model for Gordon Freeman. Like all the ones you see online, that's something like a third, that's something some modeler did and put in source. I don't think that was from Valve. So and that actually got me thinking, like, I've definitely seen it in other games, but I remember one that I remember it was in Vampire the Masquerade Redemption. Let's see, when did that come out? They had a scene there where like the mirror looked pretty good for the time, you know, like you're looking into it and let's see, Redemption. That came out in okay, it looks like 2000. And well, I did a search. It said 2000. Chat saying 2001. But I remember a mirror seeing that looked pretty good. And then I remember later seeing like a mirror effect where they were just using like a shader, and it looked so blocky. And I remember like every game with the mirror doing that for a while. I think one of the Sims games I saw, they had like, might have been like the Sims 2 or something, where you see the mirror and it is showing a mirror image, but it is so blocked. All I can figure is that was like a big speed savings, but it was like a noticeable drop in quality. I mean, I'm sure we're not so worried about that now with real-time ray tracing and stuff like that, but like I'm pretty sure like for a while it's just like no. Oh yeah, someone's saying Deus Ex had good mirrors. Yeah, Deus Ex had mirrors. So yeah, like I mean, yeah, you're not getting all like the subtle effects of like what light does with an actual mirror, but you know, for the time it was pretty fine. Because okay, so we're saying Clive Barker's Undying. Yeah, I forgot about the mirror. It's been a long time since I played that one. So I think Half-Life 2 is like right in the we're not going to show a mirror because we don't have good shaders for it. So it's just not going to happen during that time. Like, I remember just seeing, yeah, it's like the 2000s had pretty decent mirrors, and like the early 2000s had like horrendous mirrors. But I guess they were faster. So. Yeah, well, so I was saying Metal Gear Solid 1 had good mirrors. Yeah, well, that was the classic trick. Just duplicate what's on the other side. I mean, I guess the shader effect is more. So I'm saying Duke Nukem 3D had. Yeah, it could be. So, yeah, I don't know if Half-Life 2 has. I mean, they might have mirrors, but then you get in front of it, and all it's doing is just this like smudged out sort of pseudo reflection of like the skybox or like some environmental map texture. So it's not going to be like the player entity at all. So I say, why are mirrors so hard for games? Well, there's some complex stuff with lighting I don't fully understand. Same for game shadows, but there's also the fact that you're basically kind of doubling what you're seeing. It might, maybe not quite doubling, but for sure it expands the scene a whole lot because, if you just have like a muddy texture on there that you're using some shader, then that's what, 2 polygons for like 2 triangles? Whereas if you're actually showing a mirror image, that like using the doubling trick, well then that could be hundreds of polygons or thousands of modern games. So it definitely is a performance hit. Yeah, like I think there were, like I remember a lot of driving games, like I would want to turn off the mirrors to get like a speed boost, So, yeah, so I guess you're probably not going to see a mirror. Oh, yeah, are you familiar with Poke? I was not, but this sounds like Cheat Engine, which I've used once or twice, but I've never. Look, trying to divine cheats out of a game, that just doesn't sound fun to me because you're like trying to. I mean, unless I misunderstand it, you're trying to isolate the variables in the memory for what's changing. And sometimes in games, a lot is changing at all times, like with the environment or something. And it might be really difficult to distinguish that from just like some player setting that you're looking at. Or then there might be other dependencies on it. So yeah, like you remember, like with the old game genies, some codes would require multiple lines. I think that might be because you can't just change this line because it's referenced in other areas. So if you're just changing this value, well, then there's some other value that's looking for that, and you're not really going to change like the damage unless, or health or something, unless it's looking at multiple values. So I definitely would like some help with that. Not for why you might think, but for I'm pretty I'm definitely going to want to open up a lot of games in VR, and a lot of games are not very suitable for playing in VR. Whereas I would kind of want to make more of a tour of it. So for a lot of games, I would want like the equivalent of like a no target cheat, where the enemies just don't attack you, or like some camera, like free camera cheats, or ones that let you control like the time of day. Like if it's on a fast day cycle, I can just freeze it. So for a lot of games, that can be kind of hard to hunt down. So I mean, sometimes you get lucky, but those would all be helpful for sort of my VR tourism project. Where I mean, getting it rendered in stereoscopic is most of the battle, but even then, after that, some games I might think the world's fantastic, but I'm certainly not going to want to play the normal game in VR because it just wouldn't be a good fit. Okay, a few more questions. If you had the ability to truly simulate one of the possible global catastrophes, which one would you like to see? Okay, so we're going with possible ones. I think I think it'd be a toss-up. One might be basically the plot line of The Survivors, which is a show from like the 70s. I think got a remake in the 2000s, where basically a virus just wipes out vast majority of the population. I think it's like 1 out of every 10,000 people are immune to it. And so you just kind of follow the people and kind of seeing what happens with civilization rebuilding or not. I think it'll be kind of pretty interesting to see. I mean, because it's like you have modern knowledge and technology, but we've kind of hit the peak. Everything's still. So I'm saying worth watching. Yeah, definitely. I still need to finish the 70s one. I would say this. It feels like a zombie movie without the zombies. Like if you're a fan of like the original Dawn of the Dead, or like Day of the Dead, I'd say you should probably try and hunt it down. It definitely has a similar feel because it's all the same problems except without the zombies. you know. But yeah, like there was one point where they were talking about how they had to get out of the city because they might be immune to the main virus, but that doesn't mean they're immune to all these other viruses that are going to be occurring because of decomposing bodies entering the water and that sort of thing. So it's and that's a point you almost never see in post-apocalyptic things. Is there's more than one disease out there other than the one that turns people into zombies or something. Sanitation's still an issue. The what? So yeah, that would be one scenario. And I guess the other would be alien invasion. I mean, because that can spin all sorts of ways. I mean, that one is possible based on our knowledge of the universe. The universe is incredibly big. There, it's not impossible that you have aliens coming and deciding Earth looks good. That's either us or them. So, yeah, it's either humans or the aliens. I mean, if we had a colony ship and, you know, Earth was doomed, I think humanity wouldn't be much better. I mean, yeah, you could. I mean, yeah, you could say that we could try for coexistence, but you know, if we've already wrecked our planet, and like, how would we treat an alien civilization coming towards us that we couldn't necessarily communicate with, but they seem to be peaceful? We might just launch missiles at them. I mean, who knows? You know? And if they're doing that, well, then you're at war anyway. So even if the potential is there for, you know, for cohabitation, depending on how it plays out, it might go away pretty rapidly. You know, it's an interesting scenario. So, yeah. Okay, so I should keep. So, yeah, those are the two I would think of if I was going to simulate one of those. Okay, I'm skipping some more questions. Oh, yeah, I'll mention this one quick. How badly does the lack of anti-aliasing affect you in VR? I find that the higher headset resolutions do help dampen the shimmer somewhat. Yeah, okay, it depends a lot on the game, but it can be actually worse because you're so zoomed in. Like if you want an example of this, check out Project Cars. Like that one has, I think, basically shader-based anti-aliasing, and I think I was driving like a Porsche or something on one of the tracks, and like the shimmering off the chrome was so it leaps out at you for two reasons. One, you're so zoomed in with the view display that even though it's a higher resolution, your effective resolution is probably lower than what you have on your monitor. Like I have the Samsung Odyssey Plus, which it doesn't have as many subpixels, but it has the same resolution as the Valve Index. But even that is going to be smaller than many monitors you're going to be looking at. Now, if you were using something like the Pimax or what was it, the Reverb, then maybe it's less of an issue. But so it jumped. That's one reason is your effective resolution for where it is to your eyes is lower. The second is it's two separate eyes. So it's not going to be 100% aligned. So like the way it shimmers for your left eye is going to be a little bit different than how it shimmers. Yeah, and I'm getting to be like Freeman now, doing the wrong left and right here for your other eye. So it creates like it creates this not quite aligned effect that just makes it scream out even more. But again, a lot of VR games have like real like flat shaded textures and like simple polygons. So you may not see that as much in other VR games. Yeah, so Project Cars is one of them. VR Chat was another one that like I tried and it really jumped out. I didn't play much of it. I loaded this, somebody recreated a level from Ridge Racer. So I walked around in that in VR Chat. And I was definitely seeing the anti-aliasing. Now, Steam VR has the option to increase the rendered resolution, so essentially give you downsampling. That sent the performance through the floor, but it was weird in those two games. I wasn't seeing a big difference. I'm not sure why. I would have thought that it would have been higher, but maybe you have to get to like more substantial numbers than just like 1.5 times super sampling effective. You have to get to like 4x or something. But yeah, it's like things with fine details or reflective surfaces that like they use shaders can really throw it off. Like if you want to try to spot things that can really throw it off, or like things in the distance, or like power lines, because those can usually sometimes get to like just a tiny amount of pixels where the shader-based anti-aliasing won't work. Like again, anything sort of shiny can do it. Like armor with like lots of details on it. Like, yeah, like look, try looking at like chainmail armor or something where it's kind of shiny. I bet that'll trigger it. Sometimes foliage for like lots of fine detailed leaves, that sort of thing. Chain link fences. So sometimes like mesh material. I remember like the sort of mesh fences like on in Project Cars, like off to the side of the track could trigger it. But again, if you're looking at something that's like kind of cell shaded, or all the graphics are kind of cartoony and have like kind of big gradual edges, then that you may not even notice it. So, or I might not even notice it then. So it really varies. That's unfortunately a downside of like the shader-based anti-aliasing, like FXAA or MLAA or SMAA or some of the other ones, is that they do a really great job at some types of aliasing. Like if it's like a really clear and pronounced line and like jagged, they do it like even better than like, sometimes even better than like 16x multi-sampling. But then once you get down to like fine details, there's not enough information there for them to really figure out what should be there. So then they just don't do it. And so what it does is it almost draws your eye. It like almost draws your eyes to like the problem areas more, because like 90% of the scene will have pretty good aliasing. Okay, but the but the parts that don't are like the parts you most want to be fixed. Okay, somebody's saying they're confused by the use of shader. And they say, okay, traditional anti-aliasing works. You just take, okay, like it's like you're sending out rays or points or no. Like each pixel is like a point. So like say if it hits my shoulder, it says, oh, okay, this is dark brown. So it draws it in. But I mean, for just 3D graphics. But if you do it behind you, it's like, oh, that wall is white. So that dot is, so the dot just above, the pixel just above my shoulder is white. So it renders that out. So what traditional anti-aliasing does is it looks at more samples than that. It says, okay, that's our sample for these points, but like let's just blend the two between them. So it's like, okay, brown shirt, brown shirt, brown shirt. This is all brown. It all checks out. Brown and white. Okay, these are very different. We're just going to average those two values. So instead of just being a hard cutoff between like brown shirt and white wall, you get like a tan shade or light brown or something. And that smooths out the whole image and makes it look a lot cleaner. And then for things that are like shimmering, that drive me crazy, it averages that shimmering and that. Imagine like you have a number that's fluctuating between like 0 and 10, like constantly, like 0, 10, 0, 10, 0, 10, 0, 10. Well, what it does is like, okay, we're gonna average this 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, and then it looks nice and smooth and doesn't create that shimmering effect. So that's what traditional anti-aliasing does. What the shader-based anti-aliasing does is it doesn't take those samples, because that takes a lot more computing power. Instead, it just sort of looks at patterns that it thinks it recognizes and then tries to take its best guess. And again, for some things, it does a fantastic job on. For the most problematic areas, they don't. So, or else they either just don't touch it, or else it gets incredibly blurry. So that's the difference between like real or geometry-based anti-aliasing versus, well, when I say shader ones, they're not. The shader ones can work on anything, is the other thing. The real anti-aliasing, the geometry-based ones, it actually needs that 3D data and where to send out the points, because what it does, it'll blow up the resolution, like say you're running it at 1080 resolution, it'll blow it up to 4K internally, and then it takes the point. That's where it gets its samples. Then it averages those values, brings it back down to like 1080, except it has like the in between values. So it's saying, I guess you're calling super sampling traditional post-process effects shader then. Yeah, I guess so. It didn't really happen until you have programmable shaders. So yeah, you could say post-processing. Yeah, that's... And multi-sampling is a little different too, where it is real anti-aliasing. It's just that transparent textures, you know, like if, again, like a chain link fence, it has no real geometry. It's just like a flat plane, but it has a chain link fence, so it looks pretty good enough. That's basically invisible to multi-sampling anti-aliasing, so it does nothing with that. But for all the, you know, the actual geometry, you know, the polygons, it does average those. Or no, it just does the edges. So it's very fast, but it doesn't cover some things. But lots of modern post-processing effects can break compatibility. So, because it gets in the way of getting the 3D data for the anti-aliasing to work. And instead of, like some games, they'll like render the image completely flat and then apply the post-processing effects. So then when the anti-aliasing comes in, it has to have a way to get around that. Otherwise, it has no geometry to work with. Whereas post-processing effects can work with anything, but they're a lot less complete. Fingers crossed, AI solves a lot of this stuff so that even the post-processing is still damn good. But we're not there yet. Okay, that went on a lot longer than I meant to, but the person was confused, so I want to give a quick explanation of anti-aliasing there. Even though I'm sure there's a million explanations of that online. Okay. Someone's asking if I picked up any games. I got a few, not too many. I have so many games now. More just to catch up on some. Let's see, what did I get? I got Sea Salt. That's one I was interested in. Binary Domain. That's one I've always meant to get around to trying out. Let's see. I think those two are on Steam. On GOG, I got Judge Dredd versus Death. I'm normally not into comic book games, but I really like Judge Dredd, and I was wanting some more Judge Dredd. So, that I think it came out to like $2.50 for that one, or it might have just been $2. What else did I get? I got something else on GOG. Here, I'll check my archive. I entered these in recently, so I'll remember. Okay. Let's see. Some of these are just free games I claimed. Oh yeah, Project Warlock. That was the other one I got from GOG. It's kind of a retro style first-person shooter. And let's see. I thought I got some others, but maybe not. Oh, the Turing Test. That's another one I got. The space-type adventure game. I might try out. So yeah, not that many this time, but it's more like I have so many games that I can have just as good a time. Going through what I have. I mean, it's I played a few this month. I actually had a few good picks this time. Call of the Sea. I like that one a lot. This way I would describe it, it's sort of like a Lovecraft version of a Laura Bow game, except in first person. I think it takes place in the 1930s. You go to this mysterious island and start investigating things, and it was good. I liked it. It definitely had like the sort of Lovecraft progression to it. Good puzzles too. I was able to do it without hints. Yeah, and a few of them slowed me down. But yeah, I actually didn't. This is one. I mean, I sort of cheated in the sense that I got this one for free from GOG as part of the deal I have. I didn't actually realize it was Lovecraftian until I started playing it. I just saw like adventure game, cool screenshots, mysterious island. Like, okay, I'm in. I'm fine with going to tropical islands for mysterious things happening. That's a good plot premise for me. So, yeah, I've been trying to play like bright games lately because it got pretty hot here this summer. Though I guess not as hot as the Pacific Northwest. Let's see. Oh yeah, Enslaved Odyssey to the West. I played that one. That one, the gameplay on it is pretty so-so, but the atmosphere is fantastic. The environments in that game, that's one that's screaming to want to walk around in VR. The storyline was it had a few cringy and cliched parts, but overall it was pretty good. Like I found the story engaging. It takes place in like this kind of post-apocalyptic world, like a couple hundred years in the future. A lot of it takes place in New York City, where it's completely overgrown by vines and buildings are overrun or crumbling. I think it's actually really cheap right now too. I already had a copy. I think it's like $2.50 right now, or maybe $3. However, I should warn you, this got the rough end of console ports. This one took me more steps to get working nicely than I've played in a while. I've had to do in a while for a more modern game. Like, okay, this one wasn't really necessary, but I did it anyway to skip all the logo videos once you first start. The field of view is a little too zoomed in. I think it's 70 degrees by default. I found 80 was about good for me. If I went more than that, it gave kind of a tunnel vision feel to it. So there's the field of view. Oh man, there was more stuff too, though. Yeah, there was this bug with the shadows where, like, on some cutscenes, like, it created this pretty distracting, like, banding effect. I mean, it's not a complete deal breaker, but it looks like they have, like, striped moving face paint on them instead of just a blob shadow or something. That was a little distracting. God, I know there was something else. Oh yeah, with the controls. I've never seen this before. Okay, it would let me remap the controls. Like, I wanted to use the side buttons on my mouse, and it would say like mouse button 4, mouse button 5. So I've seen plenty of games that won't let you map those, but it took them. Except when I saved and then I ran the game, it wouldn't work. So I come back and it's erased it. However, it only did it for those mouse buttons. So then I thought, okay, I'll just remap it to something else with auto hotkeys. So I did the bracket keys. And then the same thing happened. Like, it registered the bracket keys, but then I go in and it undoes it. I'm just going, but it didn't do that with the other keys. So I finally remapped O and P, and then it took those. Like, it accepted those. So then I used auto hotkey to map that to my mouse buttons. But I never seen, because I've seen games like not take the mouse side buttons, but I've never seen it tell me it's taking it, but then not do it and just erase them as soon as I'm done. Like, I've never seen that before in a game. So, and I'm surprised. So it wouldn't take the mouse buttons, it wouldn't take the bracket keys, but it would take the letters. So good enough. And God, I swear there was another thing I had to do to get that game. Oh yeah, okay. Well, this wasn't an issue for me, but that does have a capped frame rate, but fortunately it's capped at like 62 frames a second, and my monitor's 60 frames a second, so that didn't matter for me, but if you had a high resolution monitor. Oh yeah, increasing the field of view is funny. It's kind of funny too, because you see some flaws in the cutscenes where they'll start walking off screen, then just completely freeze while the other character is talking. So you can tell it wasn't meant for that level of field of view, but it wasn't too bad. That was only in cutscenes. Uh, yeah, I enjoyed it. It had a really great atmosphere to it. Interesting story, serviceable gameplay. Not really my kind. It's kind of Prince of Persia ish with the gameplay, but yeah, it was cool. I also played Super Hot, or I played half of it. Like the gameplay was okay. Maybe I'm just more sensitive to this stuff, but I really hated how it kept flashing things in my face because it did that every single level. One, if you beat it, it would just go super hot, and it like flashes it, and I really like that. But if you didn't beat the level and you restarted, it would just flash this white and black rose at you that just. I have to imagine they probably have to put a seizure warning on that game for maybe some people. Uh, but anyway, I played it. It just kept bugging me. Like even though the gameplay was fine, uh, I, I played it up to the point where the game tells you you need to stop playing this game and makes you promise to stop playing it. So I said okay, and then I just quit, and then I just watched the rest of it on a playthrough. I mean, I wouldn't mind the gameplay, but the the flashing was like more tolerable, like watching it through a window, you know. So I might just be more sensitive to that sort of thing. Well, like the blackouts and Echo, that bugged me a bunch, too. So, uh, that might have been it. Well, I tried playing a little bit of Rime because I got that one for free on Epic, RIME, but it wasn't my kind of game. I like the mechanics were okay, but the thematic style and everything wasn't quite it. Oh yeah, that was one more. Uh, I did Rage 2. That one, I played that through the Epic. That was another one I got for free from Epic. I don't know why, but that game felt so hollow to me. And I feel like they were trying not to. So this is one of those like mysteries. Like why does Enslaved or Call of the Sea feel like it has so much soul to it and it's like a gripping experience, but Rage just felt so hollow. I mean, what's not there? I mean, I guess it's like making it too open ended or something. I don't know. I will say the ending is pretty decent. Like they go over the top with, they go over the top in a good way. Like you know, with this giant mutant smashing things, and then you grab the general by his throat, and he's just like, like he's like screaming as you're like trying to stop him. It was a very like it was a satisfying end, but it's like it gave me a similar feeling to a lot of Ubisoft games where it just it I don't know. It's like you're not getting lost in the world. It feels more just like a checklist of things to do. Like it's not given the right motivation either through the gameplay or the story or something or some combination. It feels too rote. I don't know. No. Well, someone was saying pink crap everywhere. I thought the visual design was fine. I mean, in fact, there were impressive parts, but it just something didn't click. I don't know. So it's like at first I was kind of exploring different areas, but quite rapidly I just went like straight for the main campaign missions, and that was it. Because it just felt too hollow. I don't know why. So somebody's saying Rage 1 was also crap. Well, I don't know. Rage 1 ended like off a cliff. Like not even a cliffhanger ending. It's just like, oh, yeah, here's the end. Bye. I felt like Rage 1 felt a little more cohesive, to be honest. But not, I mean, I don't know, a lot of games can, yeah, I thought Rage 1 was all right. But Rage 2 just, the thing is, it's bigger, and I think they put more effort into 2, but it still felt hollow. So, I think it would take a study figuring out why. But, yeah, I think that's all I played. I'm trying to, well, I'm doing Judge Dredd versus Death now. That one's, it's pretty good for what it is, actually. Yeah, I think that's about it. But yeah, like now's the time I would probably want to play games that would be in the desert or in the jungle or tropical area, something that feels real hot. So, okay, I'm afraid I'm skipping more questions here. Someone's asking what I thought of the movie Falling Down. I think it's pretty good. Falling Down sort of taps into that thing where it's like there's probably a better words for this than what I can think of, but it's like people not having meaning in the modern world, so they're kind of having a bit of an existential crisis about it, and that can take it to interesting places. Like another movie kind of like that is Bulworth. That was from the '90s, where this politician, it's like this typical politician, except he realizes he doesn't have long to live, so he just completely stops caring about what he says to like the press, his constituency, and everything. It is just 100% honest with them to a fault. So it's an interesting movie of just like people who just stop giving a damn in the modern society. So there's a few movies like that, but they tend to be a little rare. So that's always can be a fun. Well, Office Space is another example of that, where it just stops caring. About that's always a fun premise for movies. I've seen a handful of others like that, but let's see. Okay, I'm skipping a few more. Yeah, and I should ask people to maybe stop doing these like big multiple questions, unless they're like really related to one another. Somebody's asking if I wish games had a more giant crossover cast, like with Super Smash Brothers, saying like an RTS where you could have Sauron fighting Dracula from Castlevania. I hadn't thought of, or Blues Brothers versus Mad Max. I hadn't really thought of that. That's not something I'm missing too much, but I can see where for a lot of people that could have a lot of appeal. So, but it's a matter of work. Copyright's probably your biggest enemy with that, because because you have to get permission for all these cross intellectual property things. Though I guess as companies start buying up everything, that'll get easier. I guess Mortal Kombat's really embraced that. They have a lot of crossover stuff now. Well, this is a good question for the audience too, for the chat. Best jungles in games, and they're saying they can only think of Far Cry and Crysis. Yeah, I've been underwhelmed. Well, honestly, the first level of the Call of the Sea wasn't bad. I mean, it's quite constrained, but okay. Somebody's saying Crysis all the way. I haven't played Crysis 3 though. I've seen some jungle screenshots of that. Let's see. Okay, somebody's saying a mod for Arma, or maybe an expansion for Arma 3 Tanoa. Let's see. I hadn't heard of that one. Maybe. Well, it looks more impressive than some jungles I've seen. I haven't played it, but I saw some snippets of, what was it, Ghost Recon Wildlands? Again, I don't know how great it is. Oh, actually, there's an old one. Again, not the best, but they're trying. What is it? Oh, what the hell is that called? It was something, Pat the Hell had that actor in it. Oh man, it was like trying to be sort of a South American Deus Ex kind of game, but it was sort of so-so, I thought. Oh, and it has this actor I forgot the name of. Yeah, that's it. Boiling Point. That was it. Thanks. Uh, See, somebody saying best jungle is Sirius CM2. Well, Sirius CM2 doesn't really get like thick jungles, you know. Yeah, in fact, I remember kind of struggling with that. Somebody saying Donkey Kong. Yeah, well, Donkey Kong Country does have nice jungles, but I'm assuming there were, I'm assuming they meant like 3D ones. Yes, Donkey Kong Country does indeed have good jungles. See, the thing is, they never get thick enough. Okay, now I thought of that. Somebody's saying Viet Cong had awesome jungles. There could be some Vietnam War games that have pretty decent jungles that I just haven't played. I could see that. Because this isn't really like a technology thing. It's more like a level design thing. Because, I mean, you can fill up jungle foliage with just simple sprites. Okay, somebody's saying Rising Storm 2. Well, actually, on the trailer, I expect to be underwhelmed, but maybe I won't be. On the trailer for Far Cry 6, it looked like there was one shot that maybe these jungles are decent, but yeah, this is Ubisoft we're talking about because, look, compare the I've probably said it 100 times now, compare the jungle on like the E3 presentation for Far Cry 3 compared to what you actually got. I want to say it's like 5 times as thick, you know, to create that kind of imposing feel. When I was making the Dream Software video, I was struggling to find a shot where he's saying like the canopy is so thick it's kind of blocking out the sun. Because if you're deep in the jungle, like yeah, that's kind of what happens. If you have like a whole lot of tree cover, you know, it's dark because the plants are soaking up the sunlight. Okay, somebody's saying Overlord 2. I haven't played 2. I've only played the first one. So yeah, I haven't, you know, even, and again, this isn't a technology thing. It's just a level. I think what it is game companies always wanting to push like the flashier graphics over, you know, more details. So, because I was thinking, I saw a trailer for, was it the new Forza Horizon 5, which takes place in Mexico. I was not impressed by the rainforest they had there. It looked just like a bunch of tropical trees plunked down. And just to make sure I wasn't feeling crazy, I immediately just did a search for Mexico rainforest. And yeah, it's so much thicker than what you're seeing in the game. So, okay, actually, I remembered one. One that has a good jungle feel is like the first act of Dungeon Siege 2. It's not particularly natural. You know, they have like ramps and stuff, but it has that kind of claustrophobic feel to it. Actually, this could be my memory painting things better than they are, but I want to say the Dungeon Siege expansion had kind of a imposing jungle feel to it that, you know, a lot of it's about lighting and like how thick you make the jungle and, you know, attention in the right places, that sort of thing. Okay, more questions. This is going on kind of long. Let's see. Have you played any I've played Gabriel Knight 1 and 2. They're pretty good. They're not necessarily my favorites, but I like them. I think I'd want to, if I ever get like a piano type keyboard, I think I'd want to learn how to play the credits music to the first one, like dun 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 dun. Because there's one part where I think it'd be interesting on the piano. It's like dun 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 dun. That's some good music in that. Okay, I'll address this one quickly. Because I think somebody misunderstood what I was saying. You've expressed concern about hyperclimate change several times, but always noted it would take at least 100 or so years before the Earth got impacted heavily. And they're saying they're revising statements now that could happen in 30 years. What are your thoughts? Well, one chat, is that what I said? I mean, if it is, I'll own it and I got it wrong. But I think what I was implying is like, got impacted heavily. I think what I mean is like feeling the full effects of it. So like, but heavy is kind of a subjective term here. You know, like right now, the oceans aren't dead. Most of the surface of the earth is not desert. People live on the equator. We have ice caps. So we haven't really felt the full hammer come down on this yet. And that could, all that stuff could take, 100 or couple hundred years to play out. That doesn't, but it's like a train that keeps rolling. Okay, somebody's saying, I think we won't be living underground for at least 100 years. I think that's probably accurate. I mean, you might have a few, you have individuals living underground now, but I think you won't see like mass societies underground for 100 years. I think that's a fair assessment. I think what will more likely happen would just have migrations, because that's a lot easier than trying to build an underground society. That's that might have been the context of the New Beginning game dungeon, where a lot of the game was in the future. Yeah, like, well, even, I mean, like for feeling the effects, we were feeling the effects even when I made the New Beginning, where it's the I mean, to me, the yikes figure from that was, well, besides the ocean health, was how much wildlife has disappeared since the 70s. Like, it's just been an utterly massive amount. Like, I think many biologists are labeling us as being within like the 6th great extinction now, that we're losing more biodiversity at a faster rate than when the dinosaurs were wiped out. So that's a pretty big effect, but that's invisible for a lot of people right now. So somebody wants to be a Skaven. Well, I don't think you have the right genes. You're not rat, So, but yeah, it's like a train that's gonna keep on going. I might have. So yeah, when I say the full effects, at some point this does stabilize, but that could be hundreds of years from now, and it just kind of keeps kind of cooking more and more until then. So, like, and how deep that impact goes and how much of humanity adapts, or if it adapts, that's more like the fog I'm in, where I really don't know. But no, I wasn't trying to imply we won't feel the effects before then. But you're going to feel the effects, and you're going to keep feeling more effects. That's what's going to happen. But okay, well, I'm almost to check questions. They were mentioning Satan and the song Satan in the birthday video. Do you just know that from Spawn, or do you like the group? I think I heard that from Spawn, and then I listened to more. Now I'm going crazy. Is that Orbital or Prodigy? I think it's Orbital, not Prodigy. I listened to more Orbital after that. But I was a fan of Orbital from Hackers. Was it Halcyon On and On? If I'm not mixing up band names. Because that one's a great track. Yeah, Orbital. Not only is that a great track, that's a great use of the track, where he's going over you're doing the flyby of the city, and then it transitions to like the computer model circuitry and everything, and then that music's playing. It's so nice. I think that's why Hackers holds up. Like the actual substance of hacking does not hold up at all in the movie. I think even at the time it was made, but stylistically the movie's still great. It's a fun movie. It has great music, has great visuals, like good style. Like it's it's cheesy to the point of being funny, you know. So I think it's a movie that holds up in other ways. Whereas if you compare that to something like what was it, Sneakers, that's a movie that feels incredibly dated now, you know. But Hackers tapped into more timeless stuff that it made it work. Even though I just okay, so a few more questions and I'll take live ones. Sorry, I'm just skipping more and more now because it went on so long. Okay, well, I guess I could find out, but I'll answer this one quick. How many people that you've known in the past are genuinely think I'm a bad person? Well, I remember a couple. Well, after I did the Games as a Service video, I had 2 people emailing me that they thought I was evil. One person didn't really elaborate. The other person, their reasoning was that I was trying to use the government to do this, and so by using force, that was evil. So I replied to them, well, I can understand if you might think that, but then you'd have to basically be against all law enforcement. And I don't think that's a very kind of practical or consensual view. I mean, among most of humanity. I mean, even tribal societies had some flavor of law enforcement. You know, if you killed somebody, yeah, you're either, you know, you're probably getting exiled from the tribe or killed yourself or something. I mean, that's law enforcement. So, you know, it's, yeah, if you are completely against all and every and all forms of law enforcement, I can see where you would be against the Games as a Service thing, but that's a view that doesn't really hold up under its own logic, too, because you wouldn't have being games sold if there was no law enforcement. I mean, okay, let's see, but yeah, those are the ones like, and I did have another person contact me that rapidly began to think I was evil, basically because I think this person might not have been very stable. Basically because I stand by the assertion that global warming appears to be real by all scientific consensus, you know, by the preponderance of the evidence, you know, and that opened up ugly territory for them. So I get the feeling that person genuinely really did not like me. So, let's see. Oh yeah, this was a decent one. Russ, if you were dropped into any of the Resident Evil games, which would it be, and which do you think you would have the best chance of surviving? Well, I'm at a disadvantage here because I've only played 1 through 4. I haven't played 0, Code Veronica, or, you know, 5, 6, 7. Well, I played like the very beginning of 5, not much of it, just like the demo. So out of those, I think 4 might be I would have the best odds, because you start off like you're kind of in the country, you're kind of just on some dirt road out in the forest, and I think your best chance is just run, get out of there. And I could hide in the forest and put a lot of ground between myself and the town. I think I could do a decent job of that. Because in the first one, you're kind of isolated in the mansion, but you have those dogs outside, so that could be a problem. And 2 and 3, you're at ground zero with this stuff, where there's just zombies everywhere, and a nuke's coming. So I mean, maybe, I don't know how to hotwire a car. I mean, and even then, the roads would be a mess and congested. So I think 2 and 3 would, yeah, I think 4 is probably my best chance for survival. Although 4, I feel like I'm the only person who thinks this. I love the first third of the game. Like, the first third is awesome. And then you get to the castle, and then it just starts cheapening the whole horror aspect, where, like, the first thing you do as soon as you get to the castle is they have like 6 catapults continuously shooting at you. It's like, oh yeah, that really feels like slow burn horror and dread. No, that just feels like an over-the-top action thing. I mean, that would work in some games, You know, like if I was in a serious Sam game, that'd fit right in. But it that made it less scary. And then you keep going, and I think by the end, like you're on some island, and all the zombies have rocket launchers, and they're all shooting at you, or maybe they have machine guns. It's just like, oh yeah, this really is the scary horror stuff. It just lost the kind of terror that the first third had. So, oh, maybe I'm remembering it wrong. Somebody's saying the first one, the mansion gets nuked. Does it get nuked or bombed? Or I remember, yeah, because a nuke's a lot different than a bomb. Like if you can just clear the grounds and you can be out of the way of a bomb, but a nuke you gotta keep running for miles and miles. You know. I don't know, but yeah, I think out of the ones so I don't know. 5 probably wouldn't be good either because I forget if it was either in the desert or just a real arid area, which I'm not good with. I wouldn't survive as well. Whereas like 4 is in winter or fall, and there's forest, so I wouldn't get dehydrated so fast, or die from exposure most likely. And 6 and 7, I don't know what's going on. No, 6, 7, 8 now. Yeah, with Village, huh? So yeah, I don't really know what's going on with 6, 7, and 8. So yeah, okay. So there were a lot of good questions this time. Sorry, it's going on longer here. Okay, some of these have longer answers, so. Okay, well, I'll answer this one quick because it's easy. Oh, you're saying I really like beautiful environments in games, but I dislike Castlevania Lords of Shadow. Could I clarify it? Yeah, no, visually, that was a home run. Castlevania Lords of Shadows, like the art direction is awesome on that. It's like the music is where I thought it just took a total dive from the other Castlevania games. And the gameplay, I don't know. Maybe it just didn't quite have the feel that it wasn't quite my style of gameplay for Lords of Shadow. But no, don't think I'm knocking the art design on Lords of Shadow. I don't think I could have done better. I mean, well, of course I couldn't with my. I don't think they could have done better for that. So. Oh, somebody's asking if I might check out Mankind Divided for the visuals again. Maybe, but that's another one where the screenshots I've seen. Okay, I might be an imagination snob here. I almost feel like, from what I've seen, they could go even more nuts if that's what you want. When you see that video, I'll link in the description. You'll see what I'm talking about. You know, with the visuals. But again, I'm only going off screenshots, and I played like the first hour or something. Okay, skipping more questions. Oh yeah, I haven't really done those demo fest thing that Steam does, just because I don't like having to. I honestly don't see. I'm from the shareware days where you just release the demo and that's the demo. And if you like the game, you go and buy the game. It seems so weird to just have time demos to me. I mean, I don't like having time pressure on like when I'm doing games, really. So no, I haven't messed with that. I haven't really read anything new, though. I finished The City of Golden Shadow. It ends sort of. They answer some questions, not others. It's obviously meant as like a trilogy or a longer anthology or something. I might read the other ones later. I'll see. It was interesting, though. Oh, and somebody was wanting me to clarify nothing happening in Alien for the bottom half. It's a lot of hallway wandering and just nothing. What percent of the movie is just wandering down hallways, like not conversation, not action, just wandering hallways? I mean, the thing is, it's not that out of place compared to other slashers of the time, but I don't know. I guess I kind of outgrew those. You know, I kind of like things to kind of be moving along. It doesn't have to be fast, but just things happening. Or it's okay to have a little bit of that, but I'd have to go back and look at it. How many? What percentage of the movie Alien is hallway wandering? So. I'm not familiar with Metroid Dread, though I heard there was like a 2D recreation being worked on of the Metroid Prime game, so they're gonna kind of convert them to SNES games, SNES style games. So hopefully they did their due diligence and are hiding from Nintendo being able to come after them in any way. Oh no, I didn't mess with the story thing on Steam Summer Sale. I'd rather just play a game. Sorry, I have better games that can be played. Slave was no regret playing that game. I mean, it's by no means a perfect game, but it's a memorable game for sure. And like, it has really. I'm finding I appreciate that in games. Some of the most is like having like the real good high moments. It has real good highs in it. And Call of the Sea was great too. So. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I'll go for live questions, even though I'm going on forever. Put 3 equal signs this time because I finally set up IRC again, so I won't keep losing my place like I was in the past. Oh, in the. Okay, yeah, I can answer this one. In New Beginning episode, what made you use the way you moved from Killer Instinct for the one quick cover boat part? What I actually wanted was almost like gangster rap. Like what I wanted was to play like an Ice Cube track, but I knew there's no way I could kind of slip that in with copyright. So that this was sort of my, this was sort of my. Runner-up option. I just thought the contrast would be great. They're just sitting there on the boat and just like have like real intense rap playing like while they're doing it. Yeah, I just felt like it would just fit the moment. kind of my little tonal spin on things, you know. Let's see. Yeah, I think. Yeah, I think if you want to know the track I was going to use, like I think it's like I think it's called like "When Will They Shoot" by Ice Cube. Is the one I'm thinking of? Yeah, just have like 5-10 seconds of that playing. Like, let's see, is that the one I'm thinking of? Okay, is the desktop audio muted? Yeah, yeah, that might. Or something along those lines. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, back to. Okay. You mentioned one of your vids you enjoyed playing through Earthbound, aside from the turn-based combat. Enjoy your time with it. Yeah, it was surreal. Or Earthbound. It was interesting. How do you feel about treating your stream playthrough of Black Mesa as a paid vacation? YouTube let you get subs and donations from the streams. I don't really feel like, I'm afraid Black Mesa is not really on my list. I've kind of oversaturated the Half-Life part of my brain. You know, I had a thought, but I don't know if I want to commit to this. See, my problem with me streaming more is I don't necessarily play games in like long chunks. Like I might just do like 20 to 45 minutes at a time, or maybe a little over an hour if I'm really enjoying it, and then just go back to work on something else, kind of break it, you know, sort of like if it gets to the point, like I don't want to feel like I'm getting tired of the game. I want to just, just enjoy it like 100%. And then if my brain's building up resistance, okay, fine, back to work, or work on some, or do something else. So I don't know. I was thinking, some people might say yes. I was almost thinking I could almost just stream randomly, but even then that might get too irritating for people. I just stream for 20 minutes and just okay, bye. I don't know. I'd have to be like, it would just feel kind of too rude to me. So what PC games you played recently? Have you emulated any console handheld games you played recently? Not recently though. Though I'll probably eventually start going through older ones that I'm interested in. Oh, I didn't realize Quake Wars shut down their authentication server. Would you consider the game for play with fans events? Yeah, though that's enough. That and PlanetSide 2 have some of the higher learning curves I've seen for games. You might be pretty lost playing. I think even I would be a pretty lost now, but I think it would come back to me relatively quickly. I mean, it's fun, but I didn't realize they shut down the authentication server. Have you ever considered going full-time streaming or generally stream more variety of things in the future? Not really, because I feel like, okay, what I want to do more of, I feel like I wouldn't be living up to my potential. There are people who are better at streaming than me. What I think is more my potential is doing stuff more like civil protection or creative stuff. Well, that's why I want to go towards the movie. And what I'm doing with like kind of Game Dungeon and Freeman's Mind is sort of a compromise between I can get this out semi-regularly, and like still kind of mostly support myself, but it's not as ambitious as the stuff I feel like I could do. And streaming is just kind of like a filler thing for me. So it's like, I feel like they won't have as much kind of lasting value. It's like I said in games, I'm kind of looking more like for games that have like those high moments I really like. I feel like I can only do that through like making like a real thought out video that it's kind of scripted and directed, a lot of effort put into it to have like a real high point in watching some stuff. Whereas streaming, it's like, yeah, you might have something really funny, but I feel like it's not the same sort of high point for me. So I feel like I'd rather give you guys more quality, even though at this point I probably could just. It's crossed my mind that I probably could just surrender, do nothing but streaming all the time, and probably earn significantly more money. But I feel like I would have kind of wasted some of my potential here. So I'm taking. I'm taking the less wise route, but I think might lead to something better for both of us, hopefully. Do you keep a record of contacts of volunteers who've emailed you somewhere? Yes, but it's I'm kind of getting swallowed by emails. I'm sorry. I'm really trying to cut through it though. No, you can send additional messages if like it's just been a real long time. I still haven't responded. You can bump up your own emails, but it depends too. Like if you're just if you're bumping an email asking how you bind like a key in Half-Life, you don't need me for that. So you might still not get anything. But if it's something like, oh geez, I should have replied to this, yeah, don't feel bad about bumping your own emails. Again, my apologies to everyone I haven't responded to yet. I really am trying, but it's just it's outpacing me a bit. But what I'm thinking in my brain is it's one of these things where I feel like if I just spent some days and just really buckle down and answering the emails and try to just purge the ones that just maybe they're just game recommendations that okay, I would reply to you, but it's just like there's just too many to cut through. Maybe I can get back on top of it again. That's kind of where my brain is with it. Is there a heat wave in Poland recently? Yeah. How did you get through it? It wasn't pleasant. I still have a fan on me at all times because the windows here aren't made for air conditioners. So, but it wasn't as bad as what I've read for the Pacific Northwest. Jeez. Like, that's, oh, okay. I have not played G String yet, though that's on my list. Oh, here, I guess I can check the price of it. Yeah, it's sort of unfortunate naming that has a double meaning where I don't think it has anything to do with the other meaning. It looks like this kind of trippy Blade Runner-ish, like sci-fi, really out there game that looks like it could be really cool. Yeah, it's still a bit pricey for my taste. So I'll maybe come back in a few years. What's your opinion of games like No More Heroes and the Ninja Gaiden collection? Or Gaiden, I forget. Only allowing you to use a controller only with no keyboard and mouse support on PC of all places. Well, I mean, it's better than not having the game on PC at all. You can still, for some of them, try to mod it or, get higher resolutions. It's... yeah, you can... I can see the argument where people are upset at not having that. Like, I mean, that would for a game like that, that would definitely, like, kind of lower it on the list as to when I would play it. But especially because I don't really like controller that much for lots of like 3D games. I mean, there are hacks for that. I'm pretty sure you could probably use auto hotkey, or you need like the reverse of Joy 2 key or something like that. But I appreciate them still bringing it to PC. And maybe they just don't want to deal with the code. It's like, maybe it's one of those things they barely got it working. But at the same time, I think people are justified in complaining about it. Yeah, I feel like this is one of those things where, like in the past, like a Starkey journalist might use this as like an excuse to call PC gamers entitled, and I mean, it's some things that can be true, but a lot of things it's like, well, maybe everybody should just have higher standards. Do you think aliens will visit us soon? No? I mean, I forget what the estimate was, but check the Rama episode. Arthur C. Clarke gave his estimate. He probably knows more about it than I do, or knew more about it. Do you have any thoughts about the failure to prevent the Miami Beach building collapse? I haven't followed that too much. I mean, I know there was like a bridge that collapsed in D.C. too. I mean, we're probably going to see a lot more of that sort of thing because infrastructure isn't made a priority. Have you ever heard of Enderol? I recognize the name, but I forgot what it was. Let's see. I'm seeing if anything comes up. Oh, okay. Total conversion. Oh, okay. Yeah, I know what that is. That's like, I know Nerim. That was the total conversion for Oblivion. So this is their total conversion for Skyrim. Yeah, I haven't checked that out yet. I did play Nerim though. I mean, well, I sort of played it. The gameplay just wasn't grabbing me, so I ended up just using cheats and exploring the whole map. So, let's see. I mean, I might try it eventually. I'll say this: Nerim was not well optimized, but I don't know how much to blame on the mod group and how much to blame on the Gamebryo engine? Gamebryo? I forget. Thoughts on the Gulf of Mexico being on fire due to a pipeline rupture? I only heard about that like today, actually. Have we learned anything from the BP spill? No, I doubt it. I mean, BP's still in business. Nobody went to jail. So, I mean, I don't think so. Yeah, of course, the fines didn't outweigh the risks. So yeah, I mean, like, so say like if somebody gets what I'm talking about, say you make 100 million doing some activity that's breaking the law, and then you're found guilty, and then you're fined like 7 million. But no, if you hadn't broken the law, maybe you only would have made 80 million. Well, then from a business standpoint, the incentive is to just keep breaking the law because the fines because then it becomes a cost of business. That this is the reasoning that like corporations are going to do. So yeah, I mean, yeah. Actually, I heard lately that what was it Robinhood from the Wall Street Bets fiasco. Oh yeah, I heard a couple things on that. Well, one was that they investigated them and that they found that they were doing like totally illegal activity, and that I think it was the SEC. What I read was like that they released the highest fine ever for this, and it was 70 million. So wait, that's the highest fine from the SEC. Like they probably saved billions by kind of doing illegal activities to suppress the Gamestop stuff or Citadel owning them. The other thing, maybe I'll link to this article. I couldn't quite follow it, but I saw a summary where they're saying that in addition to the stuff that we knew about during GameStop, it was found that there was basically a lot of illegal activity going. I'm totally out of my element here. I think they were saying with counterfeit shares of GameStop, where there was like a trail of evidence, and like the author tried to get like the SEC's attention of this, and they're basically just looking the other way. Like basically the takeaway I got of this was that there was a lot of fraud involved with the GameStop stuff, but the extent of the fraud might have been much, much, much larger, to the point where it makes me wonder, like, what percentage of just Wall Street and stocks just runs on fraud. I want to. This is deep in the levels that I don't understand, but it sounded kind of nuts. Maybe I can link to that article, though. This is not light reading. Making a note of that. So if you're really interested in economics and Wall Street, then yes, you should check out this article. But okay, more questions. Yeah, I guess the other thing is, I mean, we'll find out. It would not shock me if, even though it looks a lot worse, the Gulf of Mexico being on fire, it would not shock me if the BP spill was even worse from an environmental standpoint. So sometimes the worst stuff isn't the most obvious. Yeah. I don't know the game Foxhole. So, I only know the wartime use of it. You know, a dugout hole to avoid incoming fire. Yeah. I can maybe look into it though. I don't know the game Mundon. Okay, well, maybe I do. I just forgot the name. Here, let me look up screenshots of it. Yeah, I guess I'm finding myself getting pickier on horror games nowadays. Oh yeah, this one was recent. Yeah, it gave me the. Okay, I only look at the screenshots. Maybe I should watch the trailer or something. My knee-jerk reaction was, this is one that probably has a lot of horror stuff, but visually it's the sort of thing that can maybe also get pretty depressing too. Whereas I'm more of like I don't really like wallowing in sadness in my media. So I don't know. I could be off with that. Though if you like that, there was another one I'm going to add to the games list. Here, I'll tell you right now. It hasn't been added officially on the list yet, but it's on my notepad here. Kingdom of the Dead. This also has a black and white kind of hand-drawn look to it, but which isn't really my favorite, but it was just looking too cool. So if you're interested in that game, you might want to look into that one too. I think I quoted the right game. Yeah, it's on. I think that one's it. Oh, so if a game on your list has a demo, do you usually try that to see if you like it, or do you prefer to just buy it when it goes on sale instead? I've got so many games now. I probably just wait till it gets really cheap, to be honest. But I mean, I'll try to do some basic research to just double check if I'm really interested in this. I don't want to find out. Well, usually a demo is not too bad because it's usually like the beginning. But I don't like spoiling too much for myself. I want to get like just enough to kind of tell if I think I'm going to like this and then just go in blind for the rest of it. The county in West Virginia has contaminated drinking water through natural gas extraction. They still use it to bathe. How widespread do you think this is in the USA? Is this a side effect, inequality, or some combination of other things? Yeah, well, I mean, it could be. It's just, I think it's more like a side effect of corruption, which inequality can certainly feed because, well, it's like I said with the corporate interest for BP. If you, a publicly traded corporation's only goal is profit. Everything else is secondary. If the CEO doesn't follow that, they can be sued and removed from their board. So it incentivizes you to act in kind of a psychopathic way where just to the exclusion of everything else. Now, if they can, it's all kind of calculated. Now, it can depend somewhat on company culture. Like especially for smaller ones. So if your investors are all people, like if say you have some vision for your company and your investors are also on board with that, well then you're given more leeway, like, oh, you can treat the employees better, or we don't have to make quite as much profit if this is going to damage the environment, or we don't have to outsource as many things. But if that company culture isn't there, then there's almost no limits except for the law. But when it comes to the law, well, it helps increase your profits if you lobby the government to make sure to get exceptions or to make sure or get on comfortable relationships with politicians so that if there is a fine, you're going to come in and talk it out and, make sure it's something that feels reasonable for your company. It's like, again, like the cost of business rather than throwing people in prison like it would apply to, I think. There's actually a funny spoof on this by Dave Chappelle where if white collar criminals were treated like drug dealer bust and vice versa. And then you see the drug dealer like is being like phoned by maybe I'll put this in the links too. I have a bunch of links this time. It is filmed by is given a call by the police station saying, oh, we'd like it if you could come in. Like, would next week work for you? Wednesday? It's like, oh, no, I'm busy then. And so, how about Thursday? And it's Thursday and he still doesn't show up, so they reschedule again. Then they have a meeting, and then he testifies before Congress. And then meanwhile, the white-collar crime, like the cop just breaks in, starts saying, stop resisting, and then just bam, shoots the dog that was just barking and wasn't doing anything. And like they just beat the hell out of him. And like so so I'd say it's corruption, but inequality can lead to that because the more inequality you have, the more people with power get to prioritize their own needs. And if they achieve that wealth through kind of unethical means, well, then they're probably going to reinforce unethical laws. So it's a complicated issue. For how far that's widespread in the U.S., yeah, there's probably a lot of areas that's quite bad. That's what we'll look up. That was Associated Press reported lead in the water, like over like 3,000 different counties. There's a lot of smaller incidents. I mean, Yeah, this stuff, I don't actually like real horror. Like I like kind of pretend horror, like fantasy stuff, like slasher thriller. But I consider stuff like this like real horror. So I've never been very good at like how to deal with this. Uh, Other than, I mean, it goes back to that kind of power is power concept I was talking about. It doesn't make sense. This isn't what most people want, but it's how powerful people behave. So, okay. Well, this is sorry. This is a longer question about the how things are going with Unreal. I'm kind of retooling to Unreal 5 is going to bring more options. So I'm having to rethink like what I want to focus more on Unreal Engine 4 that'll carry over now. But it's coming along slowly. But I know it's too slow. I'm going to try and fix this. The movie is going to get made. Don't worry about that. I know, even though it's constant pressure on me that I haven't completed yet. Okay. Let me get some lighter questions. Okay, they're saying a theory about Deus Ex 1. The Pulse character was written to encourage non-lethal takedowns for the NSF as a foreshadowing of his convictions, but the devs of Human Revolution mistook the writing as killing armed hostage takers is wrong and should be admonished. But I don't think I heard back on that. Any thoughts on that theory? Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, it's more nuanced in the original because he's working for the NSF because he's come to realize UNATCO isn't what he thought. So he's trying to play both sides of it, and that's kind of weakening his position at UNATCO, where is the modern one is more like killing bad, saving people good. It's like, well, yes, often, but not free of context, you know? I mean, the thing is, and if you want the context, like, again, if someone's taking a hostage as a gun to their head, if the odds of a non-lethal takedown, yeah, what you want to prioritize is saving the hostages. Next priority is taking people down. So if the odds of the hostage being saved are much higher from a lethal takedown than a non-lethal one, then the lethal one can actually make more sense and actually arguably be the more moral decision. Whereas if you think you stun them, if you think you hit them with a stun gun, they're still gonna pull the trigger and blow them away, then yeah, it's a more messy situation. Now this only starts applying to situations that's like obvious life and death situations. So if someone's carjacking, yeah, that doesn't really warrant blowing their brains out, because unless it looks like they're pulling a gun out and gonna use it, nobody's dying either way. So you should do it non-lethally. But there wasn't a lot of gray area in Human Revolution. They were basically terrorists, took people hostage, were gonna bomb the place with the hostages there, I think, and that guy had like a gun to their head. So it's just like, no, you've crossed the line. You've crossed multiple lines here. Oh yeah, and they're shooting at the police. So it's like they couldn't. The important thing is not to kill the hostages. Everything else is fair game at that point. I think most cops would see it, or even if you want to, it's preferred to take them alive for interviewing. But when they're posing such a high threat, the threat, not having people killed, not having innocents killed becomes the priority. So, okay, yeah, more light questions. I think I mentioned the holographic display thing in an earlier video. Somebody's asking about that. It could be a nice sort of runner-up to VR, where you still get a lot of the 3D wow effect, but it's not quite as good as VR, but it'll be way more resilient to motion sickness. So holographic stuff isn't going to be as good as VR, but it could be a nice runner-up, you know. I did play some of Neo Tokyo, and yeah, the soundtrack was pretty good. It's been a while since I've done it. Thoughts on other creative people? Are there some forms of creativity that you don't enjoy or vibe with as much as others? Well, there's some styles that aren't really my thing, but you know, it's I'm not against them. You know. What do you think about single-player total conversion mods, which are longer than base games? It's not about the length; it's about the quality of the experience. I think. You know, I mean, the you know, if it's long and good, great. Yeah. But I mean, length in and of itself, there's other games to be playing, you know, so that length isn't the only qualifier. Is this heat wave Pacific Northwest a sign of what's to come with climate change? More frequent weather like this? Yeah, though, okay, that's the most obvious stuff, but I don't even think that's like the worst of it. The worst is when I mean, not trying to downplay people who are affected or even die from it, but I think the worst is when it starts wiping out zones where you can grow food. Because the more that happens, that starts affecting millions of people. So, yeah, or I've heard like, or if you have like heat waves and power failures at the same time, that could get pretty ugly. So, but that's the more obvious stuff, but I don't think that's the biggest threat. I think the biggest threat is collapse of the isolated pockets of extreme weather events. That's something we can adapt to, but collapsing ecosystems, that's when it gets scarier, you know, for long-term survival. Though obviously, if you're in it, that really sucks, you know. Okay. What kind of mods do you prefer? That's a pretty vague question. Ones that make the game more fun, I guess. I don't know. Okay, so... Okay, last question. Yeah, this went on way too long. Are you planning to make more console platformer games? Yeah, maybe. I mean, well, I'm obviously not making the games, but I'll make more videos. I'll have to think about it, but yeah, I might. Well, I mean, I don't really... For console ones, that was a multi-platform one. I'm probably going to keep doing PC ones, but if it's multi-platform, that's fine. But the thing is, like, the more people have talked about a game, the less likely I probably am to cover it, just because I don't know if I'm gonna have anything to add. With Sonic Heroes, I felt like I did, because that one was sort of like not a big one, even among Sonic fans. And like, I think a lot of people hated it, but I found it kind of fascinating. Plus, it sounds like it went over well, the Sonic people hearing my more kind of untouched perspective of it, of someone who just played 2D Sonic and then is comparing this, but I'm not a super fan, but I'm seeing the wow factor though. More weird existential apocalyptic videos like the racing game, please. Well, hey, I don't think the next one's gonna have much apocalypse, but there's definitely gonna be some weird existential issues in the next Game Dungeon. So don't worry. It's not going to be maximum weirdness, but there's definitely some in there. So, okay, that's a good place to end it. More videos coming, even though it seems like I say that all the time. I mean it, though. Okay, I'll see you.